Good evening. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, and this is the regular meeting of the Sandpoint City Council. It is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Mayor Jeremy Grimm presiding, also present are Council President Jason Welker, Councilors Deb Rule, Joe Espiro, Justin Dick, Kyle Schreiber, and Pam Duquette. Under the city's adopted code of ethics and civility, as the presiding officer, I'm to identify law enforcement personnel in the room who will be serving as our sergeant at arms for this evening's meeting. Tonight, we have the honor of Police Chief Corey Kuhn in the back of the room. If everyone will please stand, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First this evening, I have some proclamations I would like to make. This is my first proclamation as mayor, and it's an honor tonight to have my father in the audience. Whereas we observe the anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, we reflect with solemn reverence upon the valor for a generation that served with honor. Whereas we pay tribute to the more than 3 million servicemen and women who left their families to serve bravely a world away from everything they knew and everyone they loved. Excuse me. Whereas we honor all who served on active duty in the United States in the armed forces at any time during the period of November 1955 through May 15th, 1975, regardless of duty location. Whereas we draw inspiration from the heroes who suffered unspeakable as prisoners of war, yet who returned home with their heads held high. We pledge to keep the faith for those who were wounded and still carry the scars of war, seen and unseen. Whereas it's important to honor the men and women who survived the Vietnam War, as well as the 58,228 men and women who gave their lives. Whereas, while no words will ever be fully worthy of their service or any honor truly benefiting their sacrifice, let us remember that it's never too late to pay tribute to the men and women who answered the call of duty with courage and valor. And whereas a resident of Sandpoint, Idaho, as residents of Sandpoint, Idaho, we must never forget the sacrifice of the men and women who fought in the name of freedom, democracy for all. Be it resolved, therefore, that I, Mayor Jeremy Grimm, hereby proclaim March 29, 2024 to be Vietnam Veterans Recognition Day, and I call upon our citizens to observe this day with the appropriate ceremonies in honor of our men and women who have served this country so valiantly to preserve the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy, to fly the flag and to visit our veterans, especially those who are hospitalized, and let them know we appreciate their great sacrifices. Proclaim this 20th day of March, 2024 in the city of Sandpoint. I'd like to just have my father-in-law, Rick Langlois, Vietnam vet, come up and present this. And if there's anyone else from Daughters of American Revolution, Melissa, is there a second version of this?
Absolutely. Yes.
We'll make the second.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for that. Means a lot. My second proclamation is mayor, and just for the audience, if you're ever mayor, you get a bunch of requests for proclamations, and Some months there's many. It's sort of discretion of the council and myself of which ones we're gonna proclaim. So second one is regarding our dark sky and international dark sky standards. Whereas the aesthetic beauty and wonder of the natural light sky is a shared heritage of all humankind. Whereas the experience of standing beneath a starry night sky inspires a feeling of wonder and awe and encourages a growing interest in science and nature, especially among young people and out-of-area visitors within local communities. Whereas light pollution has scientifically established economic and environmental consequences, which result in significant impacts to the ecology and human health of all communities. Whereas 80% of the world's population, including a majority of people in North Idaho, live under a dome of light pollution, excessive artificial light at night that disrupts natural darkness, and may never experience the visual wonder or ecological and health benefits of living under a dark sky. Whereas light pollution represents a waste of natural resources amounting to roughly $3 billion per year of wasted energy in the United States and contributes to diminished energy security. Whereas Idaho is home to the Central Idaho Dark Sky Preserve, America's first gold-tier international dark sky reserve, City of Rocks National Reserve, Idaho's newest certification, Craters of the Moon National Monument, Silver-tier International Dark Sky Park, and the City of Ketchum, a designated international dark sky community. Whereas the resort city of Idaho, of which Sandpoint is one, rely on tourism as their primary source of income as a result of their pristine geography, would benefit from the untapped and booming economic benefits of astrotourism. Whereas Idaho is home to dozens of nocturnal wildlife species, including the great gray owl and Lomulant owl, both of which are listed as sensitive species by the United States Forest Service. And these species rely on undisturbed night environments to hunt, mate, and thrive. And whereas Dark Sky International, headquartered in Tucson, Arizona, is the globally recognized authority on light pollution and has created International Dark Sky Week to raise awareness of light pollution and provide free educational resources and solutions to the public to encourage the protection and enjoyment of dark skies and responsible outdoor lighting. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Jeremy Grimm, Mayor of Sandpoint, Idaho, do hereby declare April 2nd through 8th, 2024 as International Dark Skies Week in the city of Sandpoint, Bonner County, Idaho. And I ask each resident to join me not only in observing and pondering upon this important week, but also raising awareness and support for protecting our precious dark sky resources. Proclaim this 20th day of March, 2024 in the city of Sandpoint. Is there a member in the audience representing the dark sky proclamation? Thanks. What's your name?
Kodiak Ellis.
Kodiak, thanks so much for bringing this to our attention. And I think we all have had the experience of looking up at the Milky Way in this wonderful place and enjoy the support that you provide for this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Grimm, for proclaiming International Dark Sky and helping to raise awareness about light pollution and keep Sandpoint skies as pristine.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Cody. All right, moving along. Okay. Okay, moving along, we're going to go into announcements and reports. Are there any announcements from council at this time? Great. I guess I'd like to move into the staff reports. Before I do that, can I get just a hand for how many folks are here to speak to item 8E? No, I'm sorry, 8F. 8F. Okay, thanks so much. Moving on to staff announcements. Let's start with, don't be shy back there. Let's go from right to left. Rich, anything to update us on the water treatment plant? Rich is the person we can all thank every day for turning on the tap and having great, clean, high quality water.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I really wasn't prepared to give any kind of update, but over the last couple of weeks, we've replaced some pressure tanks at Woodland Booster, some chemical storage tanks were leaking just recently, and we repaired that. And kind of a big thing for me is at the lake plant, we have ITs, it's an integrity test that we do on our filters. We've been failing ITs for almost 2 years on rack one.
Mhm.
And we finally found the cause of it just this week. So
Excellent.
it's been repaired and we're not failing ITs.
Excellent. Good, good, good. Anything unusual happening this season? This is, I mean, the lake level is going to start coming up. Any operational changes or things you have to contend with?
No, but I've been doing this semi-annual cleaning. We do a spring cleaning and a fall cleaning.
Mhm.
And so we'll be draining a lot of our basins and tanks and cleaning those out this spring before the summer production ramps up. So everything should be cleaned, ready to go, and with some of the more recent repairs, should hit the hot summer months ready to go.
Excellent, excellent. Any noticeable impact on water quality, taste, odor?
No,
Color?
none
Good.
whatsoever.
Okay. Awesome. We're passing all of our tests and
Absolutely.
excellent.
Yeah. If
Please
we
bill
don't,
health.
you'll know about it real quick.
Thanks. Any questions from the council? Excellent. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Rod, I'm just going to go right to left. So,
Mr. Mayor, excuse me.
yes, Councilwoman.
On the agenda, I noted that there was Fair Housing Month and Week of the Young Child. Is that?
Yeah, I felt like the agenda was very lengthy at this point, and I didn't want to continue it any further. It's my understanding we can still publish those proclamations through the city website. So
Okay, thank you.
I didn't want to. It's going to be a long meeting as is. So.
I agree.
Rod, so Rod is our, correct me if I'm wrong, manages and is our supervisor for our collections and distribution basically in town. So
Yep,
water and sewer
utilities
pipes.
Supervisor.
Yep.
Briefly, Mr. Mayor and Council, with the weather conditions, we started some of our routine maintenance projects that we do yearly, a little early this year. So we're out blowing hydrants off in dead end mains to bring some fresh water and get some flow through there. We keep track of that. And then as we finish up that project, we'll go and do our yearly flow testing of fire hydrants for pressure. And this year, I know Kootenai and Ponderea's do, and I can't remember if it's C zone this year and Sandpoint, but we do that yearly. We've got the whole system broke down into 2 different years. So we go through our system every 2 years.
Mhm.
On the collection side, we're starting our washing program. We've got sewer lines that we run our jet hose up yearly because of bellies and grease issues and stuff, and maintain those so we don't get called out. And then we've got what are we doing? We're doing the Boyer zone this year. So we've got 4 main collectors in the city of Sandpoint that collect all our wastewater. First Avenue, Boyer, Ella, and Lincoln Collector, and Boyer's due this year.
And you actually jet wash them?
Yep.
Huh.
We have if you see that big truck around, the white truck with the snorkel on the front, which is for sucking. And then on the front, we have a 600 feet of hose with a high pressure. We're running about 1800 PSI. And it's got nozzles so it can send the hose up the line to the next manhole. And then we slow the hose back to pull back and remove the grit and material from the lines. So. And that's and then the guys are also been out TVing with the camera van. So this is a great time of year to get out. We have a lot of high groundwater. So we're able to see where that groundwater is infiltrating into our sewer lines. Either joints, manholes, they've been doing manhole inspections, or it seems to be, we're having a lot of issues with groundwater coming in through lateral connections. So, and they're documenting that and creating a spreadsheet. So next year, one of our projects will probably be lateral replacement at the connection, and we'll have a list. So Clay's got a spreadsheet going on that.
Are those connections likely to be replaced all the way to the home, or just do you do like a?
Typically, we
to the property
replace
line?
some of them are just the connections right at the main. If we're doing a sewer project in an alley, we would typically replace right there at the ditch line. If we're doing a street rebuild where we're going in and replacing the sewer main and laterals in the street, we want everything done underneath the street. So at that time, we usually typically replace it to the curb line.
Yep.
And then we put locator rings on. So when then the homeowner, we can identify where the lateral comes into the property and they can replace that.
Rest of the part.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And that's about it.
Any questions or comments for Rod?
Mr. Mayor, I just wondered, you were on Lake Street today with that?
We were.
What were you doing that? I was gonna stop and
We
ask.
have
you.
so on our water mains, we have valves. And we have a steel or cast iron can that comes up. So we can access to the valve and turn them on and off and isolate certain areas of the water main. With the weather conditions this year, the ground was heaving and frost and they raised up, and when we snowplow, we break them off. And then, so we're trying to fix those as we know about them. That way, if we have a water main break during midnight, 1 o'clock in the night, we can get on that valve and fix it. So instead of stumbling around and trying to figure
I
out.
watched for a few minutes, but
All right.
it looked
Great.
interesting.
Thanks for the update.
All right,
Rod.
thank you.
Oh, Holly, look at that. You guys are lined up in the hole, on box, on
Keeping
TV.
things moving.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. Holly's our capital improvement pretty much manager in terms of all of our projects that are moving forward and doing budgets and design and all sorts of stuff and managing our consultants.
Just a quick update for you for our Bridge Street Bridge rehab project. We had an opportunity to meet with ITD. If you remember, they did the Long Bridge. They did some rehab a couple years ago on their piers. Their bridge is actually very similar to ours, and they shared lessons learned with us. So Brandon, Chet, and I, and our engineers met with them and learned a lot of very valuable information. So shout out to ITD and thank you to them for sharing those resources.
And what's the next step on that bridge, Holly? Bridge Street Bridge?
We started design with Keller and Associates, and they're working on preliminary design. Sometime in the next month, I anticipate that they'll have something in the realm of a 50% design to present to us. So that will be coming soon. Our target is to get into construction this fall, winter, when the water levels are down to do that pier rehab.
So that's the metal posts that go into the lake bed, like a grinding, sanding, painting kind of.
So what they did on the Long Bridge, which again, I think probably what will match, was just a wrap, a fabric wrap that they put on the piers, and then an HDPE pipe sleeve to protect it. So it'll protect the piers from corrosion, and then a physical barrier to prevent any physical harm.
Interesting.
So more to come, maybe next month, there'll be a presentation to you.
Awesome. Any questions for Holly? All right. Thanks so much, Holly. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
Eric, I'll let you reveal the big news.
Mr. Mayor, real quick, I think when you were asking about agenda item 8, there was a couple more hands that went up.
Okay.
I think when you turned your head, I think there was 4 total people that had their hands raised, 4 or 5, just
Okay.
to kind of make sure you knew what
Thank you.
was coming up.
Thank you.
I'm Eric Bush, construction manager. Holly and I are counterparts. I have an update on Great Northern that I'll be talking to you a little bit later on tonight. But 2 kind of personal updates right now. Just yesterday, Mayor Grimm appointed me the city's urban forester. So I'll be taking those duties over from Maeve in the next few weeks to a month. Councilor Duquette and I are meeting on Friday to discuss the way she sees the future of tree commissions and all of the fun stuff we have coming up. So I'm excited to dig my teeth into that. And last week on Friday, I got my landscape architecture license officially. I'd been working on that for a few years and got through all the paperwork and whatnot, and that came through Friday. So pretty exciting personally. I'd be happy to stand for any questions, and I'll talk to you in a little while.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Big
Yeah,
job.
good job.
Appreciate it.
Exciting.
Who else is back there? Is Christine around? Heather, there's Christine. I know Christine's recovering from a little cold, so get her out of here quickly. Christine is, for the public, if you saw in the paper, we, for the council, I think the council's aware, but we are currently without any planners, a senior planner and a planner 1, and hats off to Christine and the rest of the team for filling in that absence until and managing the new contract planner that we're bringing in. So go ahead, Christine.
Mayor and council, please excuse my cough. It's sounds worse than it feels. Yeah, we're excited to start working with Darren Fluke. Some of you might remember him because he filled in for us before Amy came as an interim planner. So we start digging into files tomorrow morning with him and look forward to getting his help. The sun came out, and so we're experiencing a little bit of a spring rush. Over this last week, we've received more than 40 new applications for planning and zoning and building permits.
That's 40, right?
40. There's still some on the desk we haven't processed yet, but yeah, they're coming in hot. So it's kind of exciting. It's fun. I'm looking forward to working with some new planning staff when they join us. We also have some pre-app meetings stacking up on the schedule. I think we're scheduled about a month out with pre-app meetings. And those are requests for a meeting before an application comes in to discuss a project and anything that the applicant might want to learn or understand before they go further into design. So.
Excellent. So, any questions for Christine? Council?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead,
Christine,
Council.
is there a place that the public can go on our website to see applications that have come in for planning and zoning development projects? And is that being updated?
On our website?
Yeah,
Probably
where
BSNA. is-
where
So-
projects that are coming before planning and zoning commission, for example.
Yeah, like what we've done before is present a quarterly report
Mhm.
that summarizes applications and permits over a 3-month period, but we don't publish to the website monthly except for permits issued. When applications come in, they're not necessarily going to turn into permits. We go through a process of completeness and compliance review, and a lot of them might fall off or go back to the applicant for quite a while for revisions. So that's not a number that really indicates activity for sure until they get issued.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Christine? Thanks so much, Christine.
Thank you.
Get some rest. Hey, Brandon. Brandon is our city civil engineer.
Good evening. Yeah, similar to what Christine was saying, yeah, it's gonna be a busy construction season. We can already tell. We're getting slowly approaching or quickly approaching the point where the asphalt plants open again. That's a pretty busy time for me in particular, because we try to limit or avoid letting people cut into the street when there's no hot mix asphalt available to repair it the right way. So we get a lot of permits that come in right when those asphalt plants open. So also Rod mentioned about infiltration of our sewer system. I also wanted to mention, just in case anyone is not aware, we do have a program where we require new sales of houses every 5 years to submit a video inspection as part of the closing process that we review and score to look for signs of significant groundwater infiltration into the sewer system, which goes downstream and impacts our wastewater treatment plant, which we all know is at capacity. So we do have that program in place. It's been in place for about 10 years. And sometimes that helps identify those. And we do every once in a while make people repair those sewer laterals as a condition of sale. Let's see. And then I just wanted an update on the division striping that I talked about last time. Originally we were gonna do it as a separate project, but I think we're looking at trying to wrap it into our annual restriping that we contract out. So we hire somebody to come touch up all the existing fog lines and yellow center lines. It's a minimal amount of striping. So we're gonna try to finish that plan and then get it, if possible, wrapped into that striping effort so we can just get it done quickly. We have reduced the amount of green paint by quite a bit. Originally, I think what I'd shown is green paint the whole way, but it's super expensive and not really feasible to just do the whole thing. So we're gonna, again, just to summarize, we're gonna move in the areas where we have a lot of width in the street, we're gonna move the travel lanes into the center line and widen the bike lanes in specific situations where we have the room. Right now, the bike lanes are about 3 to 3.5 feet wide, and they should be 4 to 5 feet minimum. So we're gonna get a little bit wider bike lanes, and then we are gonna put some green paint and extra symbols to kind of encourage people not to use it as a turning lane and not to drive in it. So
And that's pretty much the whole length of Division Ave, from the high school up.
yeah, I think right now, what I'm looking at is from Pine Street to about
Chestnut. or
Farm
something.
and Stidwell, essentially. Maybe a couple blocks past that, but most of the north part of it, north of Pine. We are planning within the next couple of years to do the next phase of the actual construction of moving the curb that we did adjacent to the high school in the southern portion of Division. So that next phase will be from where we stopped at Michigan, 2 to 3 blocks north to Pine. So I think it makes sense to just wait for that construction to happen rather than restripe it right now.
Yeah, and Brandon, this may preempt a council member's question. That project was tied into the urban area transportation plan to some degree, some of that division work, if I recall. Can you just briefly talk about where what's the purpose of the urban area transportation plan, which is different than our city multimodal plan, and sort of how those projects get stacked in there, and that process, who makes those decisions?
Yeah, so the project actually comes from the multimodal transportation master plan, which was completed in 2021. I wasn't here, but I believe there was a lot of community involvement in that plan to select projects that we had for the short, medium, and long term around town. The urban area transportation plan is really a collaborative effort between Sandpoint and Kootenai and Dover and Pend Oreille and Bonner County. And well, also the Independent Highway District, which technically owns our right of way. And so the urban area transportation plan identifies projects that we as a urban area, meaning all of our jurisdictions, can come together and choose a project to go after for a very specific type of state funding called the urban priorities. So it's not really, I know it has the word plan in it and it kind of scares some people maybe, but it's really a plan to identify those projects so that there's a funding cycle where we need to select projects that we're going to go after this funding as an urban area, just one type of funding.
So to avoid the cities sort of fighting with the state, no, our project's better, no, our project's better.
Yeah.
We kind of come together and somehow work together to prioritize those top 10 projects or something, right?
That's correct. And I will be doing a presentation on the draft version of that plan to city council. Nothing's been adopted yet, or it hasn't been accepted or approved or anything by any city, as far as I'm aware. But as of now, the projects that are included in there are not all of the projects from a multimodal plan, but the projects that are included are the Division Street project, which is reconstruction on both sides of the street, all the way north to south from the highway to Baldy. The second one is fixing the intersection at Bridge Street and First Avenue, which we all know is kind of a turning problem, has been forever. And the third one is.
And on that one, potentially extending it down onto First Ave, is that correct?
Yeah, the scope can change. We don't have to have like a exact plan in place in order to include it in this plan. So there's some freedom to do that. And it might be several years before we actually apply for any of these projects for funding, so they can evolve. And then there's three projects, anyway, that we included. It's Division and then that First and Bridge, and the third one is Great Northern, which is a much larger project. And because of the amount of funding, it would probably be like a single phase of Great Northern if we ever went after that.
Brandon, I think the Baldy Mountain extension might be included in the urban area transportation plan as well. Down to Highway 2.
It's included in the multimodal transportation master plan. Not the current updated version of the urban area transportation.
Oh, so, okay, so the one that's available online is now out of date.
Yeah, so the last one was 2007.
No, I mean the 2022 progress report on the urban area transportation plan. It does have the Baldy Mountain extension on it.
Oh, does it? Yeah, I guess I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
But yeah, then that must be out of date because there's only 3 projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just for the council's benefit, sounds like a collaborative process. These plans are discussed at the BCAT meeting. Is that correct? Or?
No, BCAT is a little bit larger. It's the Bonner County Urban Area or Bonner County Area Transportation Committee or something. I don't know the exact phrase, but it includes Clark Fork and Hope and East Hope and some further out that aren't in our defined urban area.
So I guess I just bring this all up because a lot of the elements of the urban area transportation plan began prior to the 3 of us becoming on council and sort of were initiated under the other administration, the prior administration. So it sounds like there's limited ability to tweak it at this point, but I just wanted people to have a sort of understanding of its genesis and where it's at and how it plays a role in our funding.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm gonna present it and do, not go over the whole thing, but present the highlights so everybody's aware. You're certainly as a body free to, adopt it or not. I don't really have a preference on it. But just be aware that again, the main part of it is just to have these projects in there so that we have the potential to maybe go after a specific type of funding. It does not tie us to do any of these projects. It doesn't, it does have some suggestions about collaborative design standards as well, but very minimal. And we are free to develop our own standards independent of this plan. So I can explain more of that when it comes up. But yes, speaking of changes to this plan though, it kind of got thrown at me at the 11th hour. There's a consultant, ACOM, who is basically paid by state funding to develop this plan for all the communities on our behalf. They, as far as I understand, they are at the end of that budget. And so if we go back and ask for more changes, they're gonna probably ask who's gonna pay for it, is my guess. So I guess just be aware of that.
Thanks, Brandon. Any other
Mr.
questions?
Mayor, yeah, if you don't mind, Brandon, how much funding is available in this cycle for the urban area transportation plan?
So I believe every 2 years, we are in a specific category of small urban areas, and I think it's $3 million per project every 2 years. And they select in that funding cycle, they will select 2 to 3 projects, is my understanding, from all over the state. So they might select one from the Sandpoint urban area and one from Haley and one from Burley or something like that. So, and then my other understanding is that once an urban area has had a project selected from the group, they try to spread it around. So they wait a couple more funding cycles before allowing that to be eligible.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Rowe?
Brandon, kind of gonna rewind back to Division Street. I know I had asked this question before about prioritizing the sections that we do. Looking at prioritizing the section that's closer to Farm and Stidwell. Have we looked deeper into that or not? Just because that's where I'm noticing that the average age of the kids is much younger, and I think the benefit, the sooner the better down at that end, and then coming to meet somewhere in the middle. I don't know if that's been taken into consideration or not.
We have not selected anything beyond, as far as the full reconstruction of division.
Well, just it seems that we're doing it in smaller chunks and pieces, and so I had asked about prioritizing the section closer to the elementary school.
Yeah, I think that, after we've, yeah, I mean, I think that after the second phase, we haven't really decided what the next one would be. So
Okay,
that's
just
open to discussion for
putting that
sure.
in there, a little
Yeah,
bug
it's a
in
good
your
point.
head then.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you in general. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm taking notes, Councilman Wall.
Good point.
Any other questions from Brandon? Brandon, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Heather Upton.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm sure you all know me, the Arts and Historic Preservation Officer, and right now I'm helping support the role of onboarding with the commissions and committees, and that's what I'd like to speak to you about tonight. So just a little update, all the commissions and committees are now open, including the Urban Forestry Commission. And we are in the final stretches of standardization of. And once those proposed changes are completed, we look forward to presenting them all to you. And then once those ordinance are approved by you all with those changes, we will begin populating those commissions. So it's been fun to spread the word. We've been putting this on all of our social media networks that commissions and committees are open. I was on the radio today, which will be on Blue Sky tomorrow, talking about it, and just looking forward to getting the word out and filling all of those wonderful commissions and committees.
Are there any particular weak points we have in terms of interest so far, Heather?
I would say the ADA committee, along with the Parks and Rec Commission and sustainability, those are the ones that we need to kind of focus on building, along with the Urban Forestry Commission that just opened, but so far we haven't had any applicants. So please tell your friends and everyone you know that this is happening.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Duquette.
I was just gonna say that wasn't on earlier, the tree. and
That's right,
we
it
had
just
talked about
opened.
that last, so I do know people that are interested in that. And again, is there a timeline for applying? I know I asked before and there wasn't.
Oh, I always think that's a wonderful question, and I wish I had that exact answer. And we're just all working hard on trying to get those updated,
Wanna know.
and that's kind of the line of updating the ordinances and then going once those are approved by you all, then. And so that just always is kind of in balance with everything else going on. So.
And so you're looking for a certain number?
Well, each committee and committee has a certain number that we have to fill, and I
And
think
that's the number next to them listed in the
Mhm.
list of committees. There's like a little number.
It'll
next
be in the ordinance and the law.
Ordinances.
Yeah.
to those,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
And so what if you don't get enough?
We keep trying to put out the word and promoting it, and it essentially will be waiting until we can get that filled. And we just felt like it was important immediately to get them open as soon as possible, so we can meet our numbers.
Okay, I do know that the sustainability has a high caliber
Mhm.
of applicants. I just wondered if you're waiting for, I think 9 was what,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken.
No, the only thing we're waiting for at this point is to finalize the ordinance so we can
Right.
adopt it with any
Right.
changes you might want to add. And then once it becomes codified and adopted, we can start plugging these applicants in, selecting and plugging them into the committees.
But if we don't have 9, is that going to be an issue?
You know, it's a good point, Councilwoman Duquette. And when those ordinance and policies come
Okay.
to you, I think
right.
we'll have to look at, you know, because the big thing is they need to be able to form a quorum to take action. So typically it's, you know, a quorum of the majority of the open positions or the positions that are filled. So we may have to look at that language a little
All
bit.
right, I'll wait.
I appreciate your enthusiasm. I'm
Yeah.
really excited as well.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you.
Are you at liberty to talk about the collection, or is that still hush hush?
Still in the works,
Okay.
but I am working,
Hold on.
I know, right now it's out.
This meeting.
So as some of you may know, one of the programs with the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission is to actively help support the museum in collecting our history. And so that's through oral history programs or helping, archive any collection, anything the museum needs support with. It's so important that our history is documented and is preserved. And right now, my commission is working with the museum on a really exciting collection that just came up that leads back to the genesis of our community. And I can't reveal it yet, but we're excited to be able to support that. And so know that our mission is happening and we are preserving history every day. So it's exciting that the city is a part of that. And that goes back to the partnership of the city and the museum has in supporting each other.
Thanks, Heather. Any other questions for Heather? You'll be hearing from her in just a few minutes as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Cheryl.
Good evening. So just an update from contracts, procurement, and grants. We finished going and evaluating the proposals received for the herbicide-free aquatic invasive species RFP that was released. We sent out a notice of intent to award, which will be coming to council for consideration of approval at the April 17th meeting. We are closing the Marcia's Snack Shack concession RFP next Tuesday, March 26th. That closes. We are working on the farmers market and cottage market leases. We are working with Lead Lock on, excuse me, the lease renewal for Lead Lock. The snow blower that failed this last winter, the RFP is being released on Friday to replace that so that we'll have it, crossing fingers, in time for next winter. Sorry to bring that up, but we're already working on next winter. We submitted for reimbursements for the bulletproof vest grant. The vest we purchased, we submitted reimbursements for that grant to get some money back. We are doing our final ARPA report next month for that grant. And we are submitting for this January through March quarter, the quarter we're in now, the emphasis patrols for reimbursement for this quarter. And that'll be in the next 2 weeks, I believe. And as a follow-up to Brandon's report on division for the striping, the citywide striping contract is going to be sent out this week. And the intent is to have the citywide striping done by May 15th. So they'll probably start it, first week of May, takes them about 7-8 days, working days to get it done. So by May 15th, the striping in the city should be completed.
Excellent.
And that's all I have.
Any questions for Cheryl? Cheryl, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Chief.
Mayor, council, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Just a quick update from fire. We have 3 firefighters that are coming off of their 1-year probationary period. They'll be out into the fleet and be able to be scheduled around different shifts. We also have 3 recruit firefighters that'll begin their 1-year probationary period starting tomorrow. We also have an interview process begins this Friday for anticipated retirements in May. Just a quick update on the JPA, on the Joint Powers Agreement of Selkirk Fire. The special council meeting is scheduled for March 27th, and the regular JPA board meeting has been rescheduled from March 28th to March 28th, to April the 9th. And just one quick update, as the weather's getting better. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that because it'll probably snow tomorrow, but everybody's out, they're cleaning up their yards. So we're kind of seeing an uptick in the burn permit request. Just letting you know, just as a reminder, we do a site inspection for each permit request that comes in. We don't just carte blanche, just say, yeah, go ahead and burn. It is a fee, a nominal fee to Sandpoint, but if you're inside the limits, you are required to have a burn permit to burn. We check every site, and the permits are only valid for 10 days. So if your 10-day permit expires, you have to get another one. And we no longer, as of last fall, we no longer allow commercial slash piles or machine slash piles or commercial lot clearing, like for development. They're not allowed to burn that stuff off. They have to haul that stuff off. We had a pretty bad time of it last year. A couple of them burning, and they were burning for like 3 or 4 days, and it was like choking people out. So that's pretty much the update from fire right now as it stands.
Any questions for the chief?
I do have a question,
Go
Mr. Mayor,
ahead,
just
Councilwoman
for
Duquette.
private property question.
Yes, ma'am.
How, like if you're burning leftover bark and things from splitting firewood, is that a permittable?
It's permittable. I'm not talking about like if you have like everybody has like a little chimenea thing or little
Yeah, no, I
burn
don't
pit
have one
thing
of
in the
those, but just
backyard.
like you
Yeah,
can-
this is if you're out pruning, you got a bunch of tree limbs and some leaves and stuff you're trying to get rid of. So that's kind of like that, probably about a 5x5 pile, no more than a couple of feet high. So anything more than that, I mean, we're gonna check it and we'll let
Well,
you know.
5x5
but-
and 2 feet high, I can burn without a permit.
No, you have to have a
Oh, I
permit.
do have to have a
Yeah, you
permit.
have to have a permit for that. The little small ones in the chimney or fire pit things are good.
Okay.
I'm not checking every one of those.
All right. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
You'd be busy.
Councilman Schreiber.
just, you mentioned, bigger fires and people getting choked out by the smoke, and it made me think, do we ever take air quality into consideration when we issue those permits?
Yes,
Oh, excellent.
yes, we do. So we changed our burn permits to 10 days instead of 30 days. So they closely more resemble the same as what IDLs does just outside the city limits.
Mhm.
The choke out thing, the thing that happened last year is the permit process, if they paid their fee, the system would automatically issue them a burn permit and without anybody checking it. And we told them they had to wait, and they kind of circumvented the system, used a different address or something from the other side. And yeah, so we fixed the glitch. Yeah, we check them all now, so.
Perfect.
And to that point, we did announce the other day that April 24th to 26th will be the citywide branch pickup for residents. We do this as a service to the residents. All material has to be out by the curb by the 24th. Branches may not exceed 6 feet in length or 4 inches in diameter. So as an alternative to burning, please utilize that service that we generously provide to our residents. So
I was out on the south side of 2 today doing some checks on some stuff, and people are already starting to get them out by the curb. So
thanks.
yeah, good to go. All right.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Mayor.
Police Chief Corey Kuhn.
We saved the best for last. At least that was our joke. Mayor, Council, thank you. In your packet, you're going to notice there should have been a 2-page report. We talked last time about getting a report from the police department once a month for you guys to review. Still trying to work on exactly what we think is appropriate for the council and the community to see. So if you have input on any statistics or data or something that you want to see, just shoot me an email and we'll try to include it in some of that stuff. But just to highlight, we've been working on getting new cars, it seems like, for about 5 years because of COVID and the chips and all those things. It took forever. We finally got the last car in. It's been outfitted, it's been striped, it's been issued out, it's in the fleet and working. So the 3 new cars are up. They're hybrids. We've been working towards some hybrids for the last few years to try to decrease our fuel cost and improve in some of those other areas. Hopefully in the next 6 months, we'll come back and say it's meeting those goals and expectations. Calls for service, we had 427 calls. If you look at that second sheet, you'll kind of see a breakdown every time we go on a call, or if a citizen's asked for help or something, it's documented, it's tracked, and that number's there with the breakdown of what that is. Any questions? Thank you.
Chief. There are a couple others. Adam, do you want to do the IT when you do the SCADA, or did you want to say anything to update right now? Okay, and Isis, I think I can jump in for you. Isis is our HR director. We've been, I can't even tell you, almost daily interviews, filling positions, trying to fill positions, at the city. We brought a number of new folks on in the last, 2 weeks. They're integrating well and some great, new employees. This week, we've been interviewing for some of the planner positions, and we have made a selection that'll be announced next week for our Community Planning and Development Director. Excited about that, and we'll fill you all in next week on that item. I think that's it for staff reports. Raise your hand if I missed you by accident.
Mr. Mayor? Any
Councilman Rule.
Update on public utilities? and
Yeah.
Such.
The Public Works Director. We did have a number of candidates. One of the most qualified candidates, we've been going back and forth with them. The reality of it is our current wage grade structure, it doesn't appear that it's at a level that's gonna attract that type of experience. So just today, we're working through some alternative internal reorganization to look at a different kind of framework for that, using our skill sets and personnel that we have in town, and I mean in the city right now, and maybe adding a staff engineer below that to help free up some capacity. So it's more than a spitball, but we're working through with Sarah some of the financial aspects of how that works in the budget, and we'll be presenting that to you as soon as we land the ship on it. In the interim, the opening's still there, the position's still there, and we're still actively looking. But I'll certainly fill you in probably at the April 13th meeting on what that looks like in terms of I'm sorry, April 17th, is that right? April 17th meeting of what that looks like, and sort of where I'd like to go with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I guess the next thing is the public forum. Next on the agenda, the public forum portion of the meeting, which allows the public to address the council, myself, regarding items listed on the consent calendar or on any topic not included on the agenda. If anyone in the chambers wishes to speak now during the public forum or during any other portion of the meeting, you must complete a comment sign-up form and hand it to staff. If you're on Zoom and wish to speak during the general public forum, please raise your hand on Zoom at this time. To accommodate those who wish to speak on general items during the public forum, as well as those who wish to speak on specific business items on our agenda, a total of 20 minutes will be dedicated to the public forum at the beginning of this meeting. If you'd like to speak and did not have an opportunity to do so, we will provide that opportunity by reopening the public forum at the end of our regular agenda. I'd like to make everyone aware that the city does have a policy on public meeting decorum. These rules are posted here in the chambers at the entrance door. In summary, I would ask that those participating in our meeting this evening, please be pleasant and respectful and not make derogatory statements about others, including city staff. No boisterous or disruptive actions, no calling out, clapping, holding signs. Please note that the council cannot take testimony on any planning-related matters outside of an official public hearing. Public comments need to be kept to comments only. Please no questions or debate. You're always welcome to contact me during regular business hours if you have any questions or concerns about the city. During the public forum, also during other public comment opportunities during the meeting, each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. When it's your turn, please state your name and whether you reside within the city limits. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak during the public forum?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Matthew Loam.
Hello, Mr. Loam.
Mayor, council members, it's a privilege to be able to speak. Today, over the past couple of days, I've been enjoying this incredibly sunny weather. I hope that you guys have too. And nothing I enjoy more than going to City Park. And during this time, I played Frisbee with my friends, and I laid out a towel, and I had a wonderful time, and I could walk freely around the grounds because there wasn't goose poop everywhere, as I know you guys know the topic. The reason I bring it up now, however, is because I think it's a very timely it's a timely moment to talk about this feces problem. It's a horrific problem. City Beach is so important to this community, and parents go to walk their kids and it's just completely unsanitary. But the only thing worse than the sanitary conditions is the last mayor's policy was to euthanize the birds. I know you guys all know about that, and it was probably a very hot topic for a while. I do not represent any animal organization. I am a citizen of Sandpoint. I teach art and music on Cedar Street Bridge, but I do feel I represent Sandpoint citizens. And I do not think that anybody that I've talked to feels powerfully represented by the policy of euthanizing those animals. So I feel that it is incumbent upon us now to use a new and creative solution. If that solution had worked, I might not be here today, but it did not work. There's clearly still a humongous problem with this. So I am very interested in hearing your ideas of what we can do about it. But because I have just a short period of time, I'd like to offer a few of my own. I believe that good stewardship demands that we give these birds a warning that we are taking back City Beach. And the only way we do that is we got a couple of choices. I have mentioned dogs. I'm going to just quickly show the picture, not to patronize, but to just simply make a quick. This one is my dog. These are all terriers. They're little dogs. They're never going to bite or harm or anything to the public. But they are tenacious, absolutely tenacious against geese. If we were to revisit the dog policy and to allow periods of time where dogs, ideally, safe dogs, family dogs, chase the geese, it would make a humongous impact in a short period of time. The geese are going to have hatchlings again soon. If we were to take an action and let the word know, let these geese know, it's not business as usual at City Beach. This is not where you want to be. We have to serve them notice. And I believe that the best way to do that is changing the dog policy. There's also, we humans could chase the geese, but it's not very like us to do that when a bird or an animal is minding its own business. It's not really but we could do that. We could scream and make a racket and they'd be like, ooh, this is.
Can you wrap this up? You're getting up to the three.
Let me wrap this up with just one. I believe that you understand that, and I'll leave my information about, I know dog handlers. I know I'd be thrilled to help you with a canine unit. But before we do that, I just want to say, as we degrade the lives of animals, so do we degrade our own lives. But as we dignify the lives of animals, so do we dignify ourselves. You've inherited a tough policy. That happened last June. June is coming. I would like to see an improvement, please, in that policy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time. And I'll just comment that under my administration or under what authority the law may allow me to have, I will not be euthanizing geese at City Beach unless the council overrules me. Secondly, I've asked Jane Fritz, who you may know, I called her in for a meeting. I said, Jane, come up with a plan, give me some solutions, what we haven't tried. She's working on that right now. Invite you to do the same thing. I'll to talk to staff about the most obvious and effective solution, which is a landscape barrier between the sand and the grass. Tall decorative grasses work in many other communities. So we'll be looking at many other solutions that can address this continual challenge. Please feel free to get in touch with Cassidy, the clerk's office. Happy to visit with you about other
I
solutions.
put myself eagerly in your service of that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Janine Shepherd. Janine Shepherd, Bonner County. Just wanted to come and pray tonight. I'd love it if you'd join me. Lord, we've come to pray for our city and our nation, this sweet land in which we live. This land belongs to you, Lord, and we want to be good stewards of all you have given us. Please put it on the nation's heart for people to register to vote. Let the number of people in the polls this year be the largest turnout ever. Help us as Christians rise up and no longer be silent. We can be passive no more in the wake of the destruction of our country. We want the glory to be yours, Lord. This land was built by men and women who love you. Let us faithfully stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us in this country, who love this country. Lord, help us that we may not be lukewarm in our lifestyles, but stand courageously and confidently in your most holy and precious word. We pray that we may acknowledge you always in our daily lives and glorify you with all that we do. We pray for unity across the nation among all people. Jesus died for all. His sacrifice is for all sins, and he washes everyone clean. Let your love wash across the nation and calm the storm, Lord. Bring peace and revival like never seen before. Bring revival from sea to shining sea. It's easy to think that our nation has passed the point of no return, but we know that with you, Lord, nothing is impossible. We thank you in advance for the work that you are doing in our lives and in our nation. We invite you, Holy Spirit, and ask that you bless this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dean.
Mr. Mayor, we have someone on Zoom, just a moment. Rebecca Holland.
Hello, Rebecca, can you hear us?
Yes, good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. This is Rebecca Holland. I'm a longtime resident of Bonner County. So spring is here, and last year at this time, parents were swinging their children at the swings at Traverse Park. We know several times the city park planner has told the community the swing sets would be reconstructed in the park. But now we're hearing she's proposing swings go instead to City Beach. I have to ask, how is this even being considered? In my opinion, this is really unfair for the families living around Traverse Park. For kids that living in the apartments in that area of town, it's their backyard play space. The red and yellow play set with its swings and slides, monkey bars and spinners need to be rebuilt for use this summer. The adaptive equipment planned will be great for the handicapped children and young kids, but it will not serve the needs of all the big kids. I'd like to share with you quickly some comments that were posted from your city's survey. Comment number 63 says, quote, please replace every structure. These were very highly used. Comment 64, swings and slides are essential for small children. 65, big swings should always be part of our playground. 66, where are the swings? There should be swings. 67, quote, is there going to be a nice big play structure like most parks have? It seems that this park is just gearing toward really young kids. Upper elementary and even middle school age kids love a good playground. End of quote. And one more. Comment number 80 was, I hope this project is completed on time as this park is closest to our house. And we're very sad we cannot have our children play at the moment. For the record, none of these comments that were posted were written by me. So I'd like to ask council to talk about this. And I'm hoping that you get together and prepare staff to instruct staff at your April 3rd meeting to get going on this. It's time to get this rebuilt, and the kids are waiting. I know spring is busy, but this is very important to all the families in that area. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Holland, and I just want to make it 100% clear to you and the public that our staff does not make those decisions. Those are my decisions or the council's decisions. So I would greatly appreciate in the future on public comments that we not reference staff making these decisions. Those are my decisions. And I'm happy to visit with you, Rebecca, regarding the balancing options regarding reusing the swing set that you referenced. So we all are excited for the playground to come to fruition. The council has approved the design and the purchase of the equipment for it, and they'll be getting an update in the near future. And with that, I just hope we can all look forward and try to make Sandpoint the best it can be with the projects that are active today. So appreciate your comments, and maybe it's appropriate for us to look at a neighborhood survey for people in that area to see what their park needs are in the interim, and maybe we can address that. Anyone else, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I am not aware of anyone else who's interested in speaking during public forum.
Excellent. That will conclude the public forum portion of this evening, unless we've missed anyone. Excellent. We will now proceed with the consent calendar. For the record, the total of bills is $383,699.98 for the regular payables. Does council have any questions, or are there any items council wishes to remove from the consent calendar? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Dick, second by Councilman Schreiber. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Rule.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to old unfinished business, there's none. So on to new business, item 8A.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me.
Councilwoman Rule?
Could I request that, as you asked, there are a number of, residents here that want to speak, I
Yeah.
believe, on 8F, if we could move that forward?
Absolutely, Councilwoman Rule. That's exactly what I was thinking. I only saw one or two, so, but it sounds like there could be more. I would be very friendly to a motion to move item 8F to the first item under new business, and then continue under the remainder of the order.
And I would move to, I would make that motion to move 8F to 8A instead.
I would second that.
Moved by Roll, second by Welker. I don't think this is a roll call vote. All those in favor, any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Yay.
All right.
Aye.
Sounds like it passed. Any opposed? Excellent. So give staff a second. That's a wild card for Eric to deal with.
Sorry, Eric.
No problem.
But do want to be attentive to the public's time. And I like the agenda here.
Eric will get early dinner.
Sorry, I was just texting my engineer that's joining us to let him know we're on. Kevin Smith from JUB Engineers will be on for any questions on of the technical nature that I can't answer. Other than that, he doesn't really have a role to speak unless you have questions you want to direct to him, he'll be on. So let me get my slideshow and screen share.
And I guess just for the public, this is an item the council will consider approving an application for 2 Federal Railroad Administration grants that would help fund the Great Northern Road project.
Okay, I am ready. Apologies for the delay. So I wanted to kind of talk to you about 2 things. One is to kind of give you an update on Great Northern as a whole, and touch on a couple items that our new council members may not have seen because they were addressed in previous council sessions. But generally, my item tonight is about requesting approval from council to apply for 2 different grant applications that are federal grant applications through the Federal Rail Association. Background is Great Northern Project as a whole. This project's been around for a long time. It originally showed up in the Urban Renewal Plan from 2005. Then in 2010, it was also included in the amended Urban Renewal Plan. It has been carried forward since. In 2021, the project was adopted into our multimodal transportation plan, figure 21. That was the figure that was attached to your council report. Later that year in July, JUB Engineers completed the feasibility study for the Great Northern Corridor, which looked at high-level design, road layout, cost estimates, utility needs, stormwater needs, that sort of thing, to kind of give us an idea of what we would need moving forward. In February of 23, council approved our second contract amendment for JUB Engineers to complete 60% design. That's the contract we're working on right now. And I apologize, I caught a typo in your agenda reports this morning. In the, under background in the third paragraph, that date was incorrect. It was February of 2023, not 2022. If that confused anyone, I apologize. So that brings us to today, and in the last year and a month, JUB has been refining their design. We've been working through stormwater challenges, utility challenges, making decisions on pipe sizes and stormwater conveyance, how we get the water from point A to point B, that sort of thing. And we're getting pretty close to 60% design. I'll expect those drawings from JUB in early May. So a little over a month, we'll have those, and we can review those and move forward from there.
Eric, can I pause you for just a moment?
Sure.
Ballpark, I'm not asking for even tens of thousands. What are we into the design for at this point?
I can give you a more accurate answer when I have it in front of me, but I think we're about 500,000 into our current design contract out of about 950,000. So roughly 50% through that contract.
Thank you.
This is our figure 21 from the multimodal transportation plan that I referenced a few minutes ago. This is a document from 2021. So the design of Great Northern has changed a little bit. A couple things on this drawing are out of date, but I figured everyone was familiar with this document, so I'd show this one first, and I have some updated things I can show you, and we can talk about later on if needed. This is oriented west is the top part of your screen, so where you would normally be looking at it, north is on the right-hand side of your screen there. So to get back into the more grant applications, the main portion of this item, internally, we have 3 funding sources, dedicated funds from that we can apply to the Great Northern Project. SURA, Sandpoint Urban Renewal Agency. Great Northern is within the Northern Revenue Allocation Area, at least the northern portion of Great Northern is. So we have funding available from SURA. And we also have funding available from our water and sewer utilities. When we do projects like this of road realignment in general, water and sewer utilities can pay for road improvements to their width. So if we have a 2-foot trench that we install a water line in, the water fund can pay for that road 2 feet of that road. If it's 20 feet, for example, they can pay for 2 feet of it. So that allows us to utilize some other dollars. So we have SURA water and sewer funds that are dedicated funding.
So quick question.
Sure.
Eric.
Go ahead, Councilman Wilker.
Thank you. Are we to assume that this project would coincide with replacement of sewer and water mains all the way north along Great Northern? So
yes,
is that 2-foot figure roughly accurate in terms of how much we could apply towards?
It might actually be a little bit wider than that. Kevin, if you can hop on for a second, you might be able to answer that question as far as our width. But it's 2 to 4 feet, I would say, is a general kind of, number you can have in your head to reference.
Okay, I probably will have more questions about numbers later in your presentation of the dollar variety.
Sure.
So just to give the public and the council a ballpark of what kind of numbers we're talking about in terms of this project cost and how we might pay for it from various sources.
Sure.
Thank you.
And counselors, please interrupt me if there's something that you want to ask about.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Trevor.
Just to piggyback on his question, so if, are we talking about water and sewer lines that are in dire need of replacement or just are going to be realigned because of the road realignment?
It's a little bit of both. So we have currently our current utility layout is generally you try to have your utilities under your roads. So they're not on private property. You can access them easier if you need to do maintenance or et cetera. So some of our utilities are currently under Great Northern, some are not. Some are in the portion between Great Northern and the airport, kind of running north to south through there. And so as a part of this project, we'll be abandoning those and bringing our new lines under Great Northern. And that serves for better maintenance in the future.
Sure, but if this project were to get put on hold, would any of the lines need to be replaced
Yes.
And
they-
more immediately?
Yes, they do need to be replaced. Not all of them need to be replaced urgently, but there are lines that will cause a maintenance issue down the line if they are not replaced.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. So as we've been working on this project, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and there's a lot of agencies and interested parties that we need to bring to the table. So we've been doing that ongoing, and we need to continue to do that as we're moving throughout the process. So far, we've been working with Bonner County, Idaho Transportation Department, BNSF, they're the partners in the rail line part of the project, obviously. The rail lines on the west side of Great Northern are BNSF lines. And then the Independent Highway District. And we have addressed kind of the elephant in the room, a potential Mountain View closure with each of these agencies in various meetings. We have not addressed the Bonner County Commissioners, for example. We've addressed Bonner County, their engineering staff. So it has not been a formal yes or no, or a formal we support or do not support. But they are aware that we're considering this throughout. So pending a approval or not this evening, then one of the next steps would be to further that with these agencies and begin to formalize some of that process as well. So this is a different kind of alignment of Great Northern. And I have a Google Map, a Google Earth version as well. If anybody wanted to zoom in on a specific intersection or location, I can pull that up. Just let me know. But part of why I selected this view specifically, if you can see you can't see my cursor moving around the screen, but the part at Gooby Road where Great Northern shifts east and then goes back north there, you might be wondering why that alignment changed there. There's two reasons. One is currently Great Northern bisects that parcel into two different pieces of property. It's still one parcel, but if you are on the east side of the property, you have to cross Great Northern to get to the west side of your property as that private property owner. So this, the realignment along the eastern edge of that parcel in this scenario is serves to stop that separation of private property there. So once we reconstruct Great Northern in this location, the dedicated right-of-way of the current Great Northern Road could be returned to that property owner. Thus making their property not be bisected anymore. So that's one reason why in this situation that decision was made. Yeah, Jason?
Question about that. Are we looking at like a right of way swap there where we are granted right of way along their southern and eastern property line in exchange for giving them right of way back that goes through their property, or?
Yeah, that's a potential way to negotiate as we're acquiring right away. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Rule.
Brendan, and then is one of the other main reasons, I know it had to do with railroad crossing and path and perpendicular as opposed to angled, but it also seems like the majority of, shall we say, the wetland is located right in that zone. So are those two additional reasons?
So you took the first reason you said was my second reason that I was going to get into. Wetland consideration was an important part of this, but that wasn't the reason for the shift east in this location. The two little boxes you see kind of in that location there, those are identified wetlands. We have additional ones kind of to the northeast there on the Kodiak Daher parcels. There's additional wetlands in that location. So they are split up into multiple parts of Great Northern. But Deb hit on the other reason why Great Northern jogs in this location, and that's to improve safety at the Gooby rail crossing. That's a concern both from BNSF, ITD, Bonner County, our own internal staff, Chad and his guys as the streets crew. Rail crossings with roads that are not at 90-degree angles or as close to 90 degrees as you can get are inherently more dangerous because it reduces visibility for drivers. So they can't necessarily see if a train's coming. This intersection is signalized, so that is less of a concern here. If you think about some more rural areas you go to, there are train crossings where they are not signalized. And that's where it gets really dangerous, as you can imagine. So I just wanted to highlight that in particular. If there are other areas, I'm happy to explain those as well, but that was just kind of one example. And I thought there might be some questions as to why, so I wanted to address that. I'm going to get into talking a little bit about the grants and continue to interrupt me if anything comes up, but I'm requesting approval to apply for 2 different grants. The first one is called Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements Program. It's a mouthful. You can just call it CRISI for short. It's a lot easier to say that way. But CRISI has a handful of program goals. I've got them up here on the screen. But one of the important aspects of CRISI is improving safety, reliability, and efficiency of rail lines. Safety from both from the rail company side for their employees and staff, but primarily for vehicular safety. So we don't obviously want to have interactions with vehicles and trains. That's never a good thing. So that's a big goal of this program, is to improve those sorts of things. CRISI is an extremely well-funded program. You can see the last bullet here. In 2022, it had approximately $1.43 billion. This is a federal program. Both of these grant applications are federal dollars. So they're extremely well-funded and they're extremely well put together. Both of these grants have been around for a long time. So their administrators pretty much have it figured out as to when and how they are applying these dollars to specific projects. The other grant that I'm requesting approval to apply for is called Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant, and the name of that grant tells you exactly what it is trying to do. Rail lines as a whole like to minimize crossings because of the potential negative that comes with, interactions between trains and vehicles or pedestrians. But they also like to reduce redundancy in rail crossings. But that was part of why this location came up when we were having conversations and meetings with BNSF, because there's 4 rail crossings and just over a mile of road on that stretch of Great Northern from Baldy Mountain up to Woodland Drive. So we had initiated meetings with BNSF back in late summer, early fall of 2023 last year, and more to say, hey, the city of Sandpoint's doing this project. It's adjacent to your rail lines. 2 ultimate goals for this project are to obviously improve the function of Great Northern. It's a pretty poor condition road, as I'm sure you're all aware. And the other one is to improve the stormwater challenges in the area. It's a pond out there much of the year if you go out there, and improving that is a big goal of this project. BNSF was really excited about improving stormwater in the area because they don't like water sitting on their rail lines either. So that was one of the first things we kind of discussed with them when we were talking about the project. And then later on in subsequent meetings, as we continued talking with BNSF, they actually approached us with these 2 grant opportunities and said, we think these might fit. And we've continued since I think that happened in September or October to just kind of discuss potentials and how we could potentially utilize one or both of these grants for this project. The reason it is coming to you now as opposed to in October or November was because we didn't have enough information at the time to know that these grants were going to be applicable to our project. So we've really been digging into how we can apply our project to these grants, and we've made the decision that our project is suitable for either of these grant applications. So that's the reason for the delay between when that originally started and now. And I've kind of covered why we should apply for the 2, but it gives us a little bit more overall, if you wanted to know why not just RCE or CRISI, why both. It gives us more chance of success. So we won't be awarded both grants. We would be awarded one or the other. But if we were up to only apply for the RCE grant and we didn't get selected, but we might have for the CRISI grant, we just didn't give ourselves an opportunity to fund the project. So our strategy was to request approval for both, and if we get one, we would be pretty happy. How much are we requesting? There's a reason why I didn't include any of those dollar amounts in the agenda report. And it is, there's a handful of reasons, but generally the RCE and CRISI grants, generally federal grants require 20% match. I've told you a few minutes ago of our dedicated funding from SURA and our water and sewer funds, and we are well within and exceed a 20% match. So there's no concerns with that. Our estimated total project costs, this was completed in 2021, is just over $20 million. And that number is still good. I was talking with our engineer this morning. It's probably going to be tweaked a little bit here and there as we refine and get closer to 60%, but we're still pretty confident in that number as far as the total construction cost, or total project cost, excuse me. So our grant request could be up to 16 million. And the reason why it is up to 16 million and not a defined number is because we don't know at this point what the total funding that will be available from the SURA funding is, because it varies based on tax collection. And Sarah, if I misspoke, please correct me on that. And water and sewer funds depend on exactly how much of that road profile we're taking up. So we will have those numbers in advance of applying for a grant application. We just don't quite have them yet. And our engineers are well positioned. If either or both of these grants were to come out tomorrow, for example, we could pivot and shift our focus to cost estimation for a short time to refine those numbers and make sure we were, requesting the proper amount of money to both meet the 20% match and complete the project and have enough funding to complete the whole project. A year ago and last summer, when I presented this project to council, I was talking about phases 1, 2, and 3, different phases of the project, different construction periods, subsequent years. If we're awarded one or both of these grants, we don't have to phase the project. We can do it all in one fell swoop. Which means our construction timeline goes from 3+ years to maybe a year and a half, something like that. So we minimize our road closures on Great Northern and impacts in that area. But it also allows us it saves us money in the long term. So we don't have to do a project over 3 years. If you bid a project once, you get a far better cost than if you break it out into 3 phases and do it. Now, frequently we have to break projects up into 3 phases because we have to get funding in phases as well. This is an opportunity in this project to do it in one fell swoop.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman.
So you mentioned that SURA funding could be used for the 20% match. Now, my understanding is that only about 2/3 of the project is in the SURA district. So is that legal for them to cover the entire match?
It is. And I'd have to probably get you the language to be totally clear on it. But generally, in federal grants and federal programs such as these, they're not necessarily concerned that your dollars are allocated for a specific area. If, as you said, it's 1/3 to 2/3 or half and half, roughly the split that is or is not in the Northern Revenue Allocation area of SURA, that is not impactful as far as our 20% match in a grant application. If we are requesting $20,287,500 as the estimated project cost here, and we have our match, the dollars that we can bring to the table exceeds 20%, it doesn't matter that it's not all in that location, if that makes sense. That won't be an impact on our grant application.
Okay, thanks.
I asked that question specifically to our BNSF grant folks because I was concerned about that as well. So, beyond that, actually, I have a little more. So to orient you a little bit, this is a enlarged version. This is Mountain View Drive right here. and Woodland Drive on the north. This is Goodman Drive, and our city limits are in this blue line here. So our city limits extend west of the railroad tracks in this location, just to encompass the subdivision along Goodman Drive. The rail, if approved, the rail crossing removal would be that crossing at Mountain View Drive right before you get to Great Northern if you're coming east along Mountain View Drive. If that were to occur, obviously you can no longer get from Mountain View Drive west to Great Northern. So your reroute would be, there's two options. One, through Goodman Drive to the north to Woodland Drive, or west and then south on Mountain View Drive back to Gooby. And either way gets you ultimately back to Great Northern. From Goodman Drive to Woodland, the detour is 0.35 miles. And that gets you back to Great Northern Road. To get you to Great Northern where Mountain View would be is 0.61 miles. So it's a relatively small impact. For option 2 that's on the screen, if you were to go that way, your difference in traffic is approximately 2.2 miles. I drove that route yesterday and timed it. It was about a 4-minute difference, 4 to 5 minute difference, following the speed limit to get through there. And finally, whoops. This is just some photos I took yesterday of the current intersection at Great Northern and Mountain View Drive. So the first 2 photos on the top of the screen, I'm standing on Great Northern looking towards Mountain View Drive. And on the lower photo on the bottom, I'm standing on Mountain View Drive looking east towards Great Northern. With that being said, obviously, I'm sure you can all tell this is a pretty complicated project with a lot of moving parts. I'm sure I left something out glaring that you're wondering about, so feel free to let me know what that is. And I've got more information here. I've got additional things we can look at as far as the layout or anything. If you guys would like to see that, I'd be happy to pull that up as well.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. I have one question before we go into council questions. Eric, it's my understanding that if we did not apply or did not receive this grant, the railroads have the ability to effectively close crossings by petitioning the state. Is that your understanding as well?
That's my understanding as well. And to kind of expand upon that, if we were to choose to not apply for either of these grants, BNSF could petition the state, as Mayor Grimm just mentioned, and in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, sometime in the future, that Mountain View could be closed anyways without us getting anything in return for it. So that's always a possibility.
If you've lived here long enough, you remember there was the crossing south of town. I forget the road.
Heath Lake.
Heath Lake, thank you. That went through that process. So I just wanted to bring that up. I've been contacted by members of the public and we've received public comment. I'm sure we'll hear some tonight. I know this is a project that has potential to impact families and people's property and their current lifestyle. So I don't take it lightly. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
And Mayor, one more thing, and then I'm finished, is we have roughly somewhere in the range of $5 to $9 million of city funds that could be appropriated to this project. Yep. If we do not apply or receive one or both of these grants, we don't have an additional funding source to complete the project.
That's a great segue, Eric. And I would just add my opinion on this at this point. I mentioned it at the urban renewal meeting, council members, that if we were not to receive funding under this grant program, I would investigate and seek your support to pivot off this project with the sunk $500,000-ish cost and look to redirect those urban renewal Northern District dollars elsewhere where they could be utilized primarily because a $20 million price tag, knowing the reality of our streets and our street budget and available funding, I just don't see any real way where we could start to make progress on that project. And I know we could do some other things with that residual funding from urban renewal. So that's where my stick floats on it, but we can talk about that down the road. With that, any questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Councilwoman Duquette.
And a comment, I guess. On page 3 of the agenda report, it said it was budgeted for,
Let me pull up my agenda report real quick.
if I understand that. I don't have that.
I'm sorry, Pam, can you point me to?
No,
that
because I
specific
don't have it
section?
in front of me, but if somebody else does.
Are you referring to the line where it says, will there be any financial impact? Yes. Has this item been budgeted for? Yes.
Yes, so does that mean it's been budgeted for? That's what
So-
it says.
So the budgeting process, and we'll learn this over the next few years, for the budget, and Sarah can jump in here. We have budget authority in the budget. At times, once the budget's adopted, you can't exceed the budget. So when we look at our annual budget, sometimes we expect to apply for grants, and we'll put in that budget authority in case we get the grant. So in this case, it's a yes in the sense that if this grant were received, we would put that receipt of those funds into the budget.
Okay, so it's not really,
I
there's
mean,
no money for it really
well,
budgeted.
no, the city's match
All of it.
is there in
Okay.
terms of as Eric explained, the utility contributions and the urban renewal. That is what urban renewal is stockpiling their reserves for this project. So the match is there. It's not in this year's budget, but it is budgeted for.
If the grants come through.
Correct. If the grants don't come through, then we're gonna have a whole nother discussion about this.
And so it did say that accepting the grant means eliminating the railroad crossing and closing Mountain View.
Correct.
Anyway,
And Counselor Duquette, I wrote this agenda item specifically to council still has an option to reject the grant
Right.
in the future, even if we are awarded it. So, and that was why the agenda item was written as such, that I'm requesting approval to apply for the 2 grants. I'm not necessarily requesting approval to close Mountain View Drive this evening. Obviously, one comes with the other,
right.
but council still has the option to continue to consider that. And upon application and a potential award, to then reject that award.
Okay.
For
I get-
example, if the grant award was $2 million
Right.
or $5 million, I don't see a viable way for us to complete this project in my lifetime. So we might have a discussion about not accepting that grant and not proceeding with the
Okay,
project.
I guess I would kind of wonder why apply if that's a stipulation. And we haven't heard from the public, and I've read their oppositions. That's a pretty big ask of people. So I guess I'm just wondering why apply if it means accepting to close the railroad crossing and Mountain View without an alternative option for the people, I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, if we apply for it and get it, and we don't want it because it complicates people's lives, just kind of seems to me like.
Yeah, I think we cross that bridge once we hear from the success of the grant application. And
Okay.
as I mentioned, if we weren't to apply, we could wake up tomorrow morning and the railroad might say, you know what, we're petitioning the state to close this crossing like they did at Heath Road, and we might get a closed crossing with no match for our most significant road project in the city limits.
It's quite a dilemma.
Well, it's comes with the job, so.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a couple questions of Eric before we
Sure,
send him
go ahead, Councilman Walker.
back?
Welker.
Okay, timeline. What is the grant application window? Do you know from past grant cycles when cities, counties, applicants learn about whether the grant is awarded or not? Can you give us an idea? Would this be something that if if you applied today, could we include a grant award in the fiscal year 2025 budget, for example? Are we looking at 2026, 27? When could we actually apply these funds, should it be awarded?
It's a bit of a moving target, like a lot of the other items in here. The RCE grant is expected to be out within the next 10 days.
The application window.
The
opens,
application
you mean?
window opens, and the application window is open for a variable amount of time every year, so we don't know specifically when it will close. Typically, it's open, I believe, between a month and 3 months. I think they tend to close it if they've received a number of applications that are, positive looking projects as far as their reviewers are concerned. They tend to cut it off a little bit earlier. And I failed to mention this earlier, if we are approved to apply for one of these grants, we or I will not be writing them, as it's a little bit unique in grant applications. This is being a federal grant, BNSF has a consulting engineer that works for them on grant applications specifically. So we would be able to utilize that consulting engineer to write the grant application. So the legwork from me or other city staff is primarily transferring information to that consulting firm, who then would write the grant application for us and submit it to the correct authority.
Okay, so the second part of the question, you don't know if we would have word on whether the grant was awarded within a time frame that might allow us to actually apply these funds in our next year's budget.
I can't say with positivity that we would or would not know. If the rail crossing elimination grant comes out in the next 10 days as expected, I would say there's a pretty good chance we will know prior to finalizing the budget for fiscal year 25.
Okay.
But it is a question mark at this time.
And I would just add, Councilman Welker, that two things. One, the time period for actual finalizing of the plans, if we were to get the grant, construction starting, might even carry into 2026 potentially. And secondly, if I would imagine if we were fortunate enough to receive a grant in this size, the council would be open to opening the budget and amending it to make available that budget authority. So.
Okay, I have a couple more questions for you. You've spoken with the grant administrator for this program, or you've been in touch with somebody who.
Yes.
But you threw the $16 million number out there. From what you've learned, is that a ballpark figure that has been awarded for projects in the past? I mean.
Yes.
Grant administrators usually reveal, like, are you crazy to ask for $16 million, or is that a pretty typical ask for?
That's a pretty typical ask, and I don't know whether or not it is, what their award range splits, if they have, the majority of their projects are, for example, $4 million as opposed to 16 million. When we were discussing, our potential dollar amount needs for this project, and kind of we're throwing out numbers of that, $14-16 million range, that didn't raise any feathers.
Okay.
When we were having those conversations. I expect that it might, because that's a substantially large amount of money. But in transportation, it's not that much.
Yeah.
Transportation projects get into the tens of millions in a really fast hurry.
Yeah. The mayor did allude to the possibility that the grant could be partially funded. Do you know if this is a grant that is partially funded? I do a lot of grant writing myself. I know that some grants just say, we do not partially fund grants. We either fully fund you or we give you $0. Is there a possible outcome where they give us 4 million instead of 16?
I don't think there is, and that was another question I had asked of the BNSF grant folks in the course of those meetings, and they would have the same problem with their projects all over the country if they were only awarded 30% of their ask or 50% of it.
It would force us to almost go back to the drawing board.
It would.
Would we do this project at 30%, the original estimate, or 40-50%? What could we take out of the scope of the project to get it within a budget 50% of what we anticipated?
Right.
And that would be really hard.
It would, and I would hate to go down that path to only find out we still couldn't afford it.
Okay.
I don't expect that will be a problem.
Okay.
Upon award of either of these grants.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Schreiber.
Yeah, so one of the biggest concerns from the public was all the traffic routing through Goodman and then onto Woodland. It didn't seem like there was any plan to improve that railroad crossing at Woodland. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct, and I apologize. I should have covered that. I'm gonna pull up a different document here real quick. And I can show you, we are improving the Woodland Drive intersection as a part of this project as well.
The intersection, but the railroad crossing?
Or excuse me, the intersection and the crossing.
Okay, that
Yes.
wasn't part of the original project, right?
It was not.
Okay.
And it was chosen because we know the condition of the Woodland crossing is poor right now. It's poor if you're coming east and it's poor if you're going west. You can slide into the tracks on an icy day, or you can, high center your vehicle on the tracks. So there's lots of pavement scars there that show you that happens. So I apologize. My computer's not cooperating here to get this up now. But there are improvements in the plans of the Woodland crossing, as well as the Gooby crossing. On the Gooby crossing, it's primarily track related, not so much on the road side. The track condition in that location is needs a little bit of work, but the road condition is in good shape, so we don't really need to do too much work there. On Woodland, it needs a lot of work, and it would be a completely new crossing when we were to be finished.
And do you have any estimate of how much that added to the project cost?
I don't, but I can get you those numbers if you would like to see them, once we get our 60% drawings and we have a new cost estimate.
Thanks.
Any other questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilman.
So, in the case that there were no grant awards, you had mentioned shifting, that money to other northern area projects. Can you give us an idea of what you were
Yeah.
thinking?
If you put $6 million of budget authority in front of us, I'm sure we will discuss many priorities. Some that come to mind for me are connecting Division to Boyer, as was originally contemplated in the urban renewal plan, with some sort of pedestrian connectivity, either on the south or the north side of Baldy.
Would that fall into the Northern Surrey district though?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Additionally, that district flows down towards Super One on Boyer. Panhandle Special Needs is about to move to the west side of Boyer, and there are no pedestrian improvements on the west side of Boyer from Mountain View down towards the alternative high school. I can imagine doing work there. I can imagine doing a lot of stormwater work in this area. Obviously, it's a challenging area with a lot of very poor stormwater management up there. So I think we would get together and look at the opportunities as a council and redirect those dollars, because I just don't see, and we can talk about our roads on another meeting, but I don't see any available revenue to tackle a project of this scale.
I just liked a little more detail. As everybody knows, I like the details. So I had one more question for Brandon, then you can have the stage back, Jason.
Eric, sorry.
Sorry,
I said it
Eric.
correctly.
Whoa, you're both
We
fuzzy.
look similar.
It's early yet.
No, you got different color, but sorry about that. My apologies. When I look at the design, I'm just tossing this out there because I know we're only 60% finished, and because of the nature of that road and the industrial nature of that road, and that it is more of an artery type of thing. I'm just thinking that, as a cyclist, both a road bike rider and a mountain bike rider, that I think maybe our dollars would be better used in having a wider path for the cyclist as opposed to a bike path on those lanes. And I do understand the conflicts of high-speed riders who do more road bike riding. But I think if that were a wider path and it were striped appropriately for walking and riding, that we'd have a more safer environment for everybody involved, including Lighthouse and all the other semi trucks that are using that road. So I'm just kind of putting that bug in your head I know we're probably not to those designs right now, and that's something further down the road, but I'd like you to kind of contemplate that or assess because then we'd have a narrower road, so less investment on that width of pavement, unless we absolutely have to go with that width.
So Counselor Rule, if I understood you correctly, our design for Great Northern actually has new bike lanes and the multimodal trail off to the side. And I think you're saying shrink the bike lanes and widen the trail. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, we can consider that in the future. Counselor Schreiber, I got the drawing up. I was trying to get up a few minutes ago, and if I zoom in here, we can see our road profile. And we have 12-foot travel lanes, which is a standard width travel lane, and 5-foot bike lane, shoulder / snow storage. It's a multi-use thing there. And then the 12-foot shared use path. So we have a pretty good profile there. And would your preference be to widen that path beyond 12 feet?
I think that separating all the pedestrian traffic on that particular stretch of road, because the nature of how it's used, would be more appropriate than mixing the bikes there, to be quite honest. I think in general, the world, or maybe just the United States, needs to move that direction.
Understood.
Thanks for those questions, Councilwoman Roll. I'd also just point out for the audience and the council members that we get accustomed to that large open space that we're looking at here, the former lighthouse property, 25 acres, being a field. It is highly likely that during my administration, in the next 4 years, that we'll probably see development there. We've had inquiries from pretty large employers who are looking at potentially developing that. I would also add on top of that, if you go north of Woodland, we're looking at just the Whitewater projects that are currently under development, plus another potential 130 units behind the rodeo. So we're talking another, 300 housing units in that area. That's thousands of trips per day on this corridor. So, the road's going to fail. It's not even built on a proper base. There's a lot of reasons why I think, despite the impact and effect on our good neighbor or residents, that getting $13 million to address these deficiencies is worth considering. And I guess, Eric, I just also throw out, is it possible, if this were to all come to pass, that there could be dollars available, or could we work it into the project to look at traffic calming along Goodman? It's a 60-foot right-of-way. It's currently has about 13 feet on the east side of it, undeveloped. I know travel lanes don't need to be that wide. Trees, boulevard, other, speed bumps. Are there opportunities to accommodate some of the impacts on Goodman in this funding?
There are, and as far as whether or not we could wrap that traffic calming potential specifically into our grant application, I'm not sure. I would have to check to see if we could modify that. If that was not a possibility, we could still complete traffic calming using city dedicated funds.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Hearing none, I would ask if there's any members of the public who wish to comment on this item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, one moment. Judy Player.
I don't think it will let me because the timer's up now.
Oh, okay.
Hello,
Hi, Judy.
to the mayor and council. I appreciate you giving us a little bit of time to talk. I live at 3206 Goodman Drive, right in the center of Goodman. We didn't know anything about this until your last meeting. Somebody, I don't know who, somebody in the neighborhood found out about it. And that's one of my beefs. if you're gonna be impacting us as much as you're talking about, why in the world isn't there some public output? Until, you're making this sound like if you get the grants, which you're gonna send for, all at once is gonna hit us. That doesn't seem very public-minded. I just would like to make that comment. I think that you needed to be more aware. We've got, as you know, city, and we're city, Goodman, and all the rest of us, the rest of them are the county. And we don't communicate. And I don't think that was done very well. I really don't think that was done very well. Mountain View is really necessary. There's a lot of people go up and down that road all day long and in the evening. And Goodman, if you think about your map, it curves. For us right now, with as much traffic as we have, when they're blocking Woodland, people cut across and come through Goodman. You can't get out of your driveway sometimes. You have to look really closely. You're not getting hit. It depends on where your house is on there, but some of the houses are right on the curves and they can't see. So, if they're going to do this, I don't know what you can do. You can't move our houses. I don't know what you would do. I think that's something that needs to be considered. That's not safe on that tiny little road. In the winter, they pile the snow up and it's basically a one-way road. Two can get barely through it. That's another problem we need to be concerned with. I just hope that, if this has to be done, because it sounds like the railroad could just close us anyway. They need to figure out if there's somewhere else you can put I don't know, of course, I guess not, it's all private property. Make another road somewhere where they could cut through and then get onto Woodland. Another thing I've got, I don't have, okay, time's about up. I've lived here 3 years, and until this thing came out, I didn't know what the name of that road was, Great Northern. There's no signs anywhere on that road that says the name of the road. The signage throughout this area is very poor, and also you don't have any signs that say how fast you can go. And the policemen have been having a grand time stopping many, many people the last week and giving tickets. And there's no sign for anybody to know. Do you go 25, 35, 40? I think that could be addressed also.
Thanks, Judy. I appreciate
you.
you taking the time to sit through this long meeting.
Thank you.
And Judy, I'll sound like a broken record at the end of 4 years, but I just want you to know that we do value transparency and public outreach. This project has been ongoing for several years, and I'm grateful that you're aware of it now, and I'm sorry that you weren't earlier. So we're going to certainly try to engage the public on every project as best we can. I've noted the road signs and the speed limits
Thank you.
for the police department and our street crew.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Rule?
I'd just like to add that my teenage son absolutely knows how fast to drive on that road now because one of those policemen followed him recently.
I don't know, somebody just was really assigned that area and they've been really busy. Thank you.
I'll add, he deserved that one.
On that point, Eric, that road is not on city property. Am I correct?
Great Northern
Yeah.
as a whole. We're actually just wrapping up verifying that exactly. There was a discrepancy in our city boundary from our GIS consultant versus our recorded city boundary. And our surveyors from JUB were going through and verifying that from north to south along the Great Northern
But
Corridor.
even if in city limits, the road is on a railroad right of way right now. Is that correct?
Mountain View. Or
No, Great Northern,
Northern.
portions of Great Northern.
Yes, it is on railroad right away.
Yeah, so
currently.
that's not our property.
Correct.
My recollection from 2008, when we repaved it, if you lived here then, there were literally 3-foot potholes in there, that there was hesitancy to put any money into it because it wasn't on city-owned right of way. So it's another challenge, even may come into play with signage. Can we erect a sign in the railroad right of way? I don't know. but I just wanted to bring that fact up.
It is, and counselors, there's a whole other component of this project in right-of-way acquisition that I did not address tonight. It's not particularly relevant to our grant applications. If you want to know more, I'm happy to talk to you about it. I don't probably need to extend our meeting any longer this evening.
Madam Clerk, anyone else from the public wish to comment?
Mr. Mayor, no one else has signed up to speak on this matter.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution authorizing grant applications for funding of the Federal Railroad Administration Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement Railroad Crossing Elimination Program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rule, second by Spiro. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Understanding that it'll come before us before it is finalized, the contract, yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber.
Yeah, I also have a lot of reservations, but as long as we have a chance to review it before we accept the grant, then yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, council members. Thank you, public, for following along, and we'll get moving right along onto new business item 8A, ICL presentation on water quality, wastewater challenges and opportunities. And just council members, for your bladders, we can consider a break after this item if you'd like. Hello, Ms. Elkstrom. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Grimm, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to comment and to present tonight. Whoops, my slides went zooming ahead. There we go. I'm really grateful to be here. My name is Jennifer Ekstrom. I'm the director of Idaho Conservation League's North Idaho office. My focus is on safeguarding water quality in our Great Lakes and waterways in the Panhandle region of Idaho. I want to acknowledge that I live and work on the ancestral lands and waters of the Kalispel, Kootenai, and the Coeur d'Alene tribes, and I'm honored to do so. And again, thanks for this opportunity to chat with you tonight about water quality and challenges and opportunities with our wastewater treatment. I want to ground this conversation in the ways that we're all tied to this Lake Pend Oreille and the Pend Oreille River that we're so lucky to live near. We all know it's vast and beautiful. We get our drinking water from it, as we've heard earlier. We recreate, it rejuvenates us, it provides habitat for numerous species, and it supports our life at a very fundamental level. It's also the receptacle that we discharge our sewage waste into, and I'm not pointing at Sandpoint necessarily, it's the national norm. That's what we do with our sewage water after it's treated, hopefully appropriately. And so even with sewage treatment, the pollution, that what's called nutrient pollution that is discharged out of these facilities, and it comes from other sources as well, but it can make problems worse, and it can create problems like aquatic invasive weeds, toxic algae, and other things that diminish our use of the waterways that we live with and love. So it's no secret that there are challenges with Sandpoint's wastewater treatment facility. I appreciate the presentation by staff earlier tonight, and if I get anything wrong in my presentation, I welcome you to help straighten me out, and thank you for sticking around for this presentation. It's an aging facility. I'm sure you're all aware of the fact that it should have been replaced probably decades ago. The permit is expired, and it is what's called administratively extended. And so it's past the end of the permit, but the Department of Environmental Quality has said, well, go on under the auspices of the old permit until you can figure out how to get it. But there are limits on that, and a new one is needed soon. I'd also like to say that the capacity is exceeded. I've heard tonight and other times that great efforts have been made to diminish the inflow and infiltration, and I applaud the city and I applaud all the employees who have been working diligently on that. But the truth is that that effort can only go so far to correct the overloaded system. I also need to mention that the permitted pollution limits are exceeded fairly regularly. Those limits are established under the Clean Water Act, and it is a regulation that all cities must abide by, or all pollution dischargers must abide by. The next slide is a screenshot off of this amazing resource that's provided by the Environmental Protection Agency. This website is called the Environmental Compliance History Online. Anyone can look it up. You can Google EPA Echo. I'd encourage you all to become familiar with this, this resource if you're not already. Once you do that Google search, there's a spot where you can put in Sandpoint, Idaho, and this will come up for you. And so let's see if my cursor will, oh yeah, okay. So I'm gonna direct you to the far right column. That is the most recent quarter that ends in the latest reporting date on that is the 15th of March. And you'll see that in this last quarter, there's a 149% exceedance for E. coli. That's 149% over what the permit allows. That was also the case last quarter, and then 2 quarters before that, and 2 quarters before that. You'll see those big red blocks at the top of the columns. Those indicate significant category 1 noncompliance, and then the yellow are quarters that have some level of noncompliance. And so it's an ongoing issue, and I'm grateful to hear from various council members that this is a priority to get this up and running. If anybody wants to have a special meeting with me after to sort of navigate this website, I'd be more than happy to set that up on an individual basis. It's a little bit clunky to navigate around through, and I've been doing it for a while, so I kind of understand it. Another resource that we have that tells us about water quality in our system here in Lake Pend Oreille is our water quality monitoring program. Counselor Duquette, she volunteers for that program as a citizen scientist and has done so for many years, and grateful for her efforts on that. All of the dots on this map are stations where we collect water data. The black dots are ones that we have significant amount of historic data, and we're no longer sampling those sites. The one red dot is the most polluted area of our whole system. That's Boyer Slough. It's the receiving water of the Kootenai Pend Oreille Sewer District. And I just want to point out that the water flows from the east to the west. The 80% of the water coming into Lake Pend Oreille is through the Clark Fork River, and most of it exits through the Pend Oreille River on the left side of the map. So water is flowing that way. All of the pollution inputs from all of those areas is flowing towards the discharge point, that Sandpoint's wastewater discharge point. And so that's relevant because as you are working to get your new permit, the pollution coming in the water already is going to impact the stringency limits of your permit. So it's something that needs to be, taken into consideration.
Do you mind if I ask you a quick question? So are you saying that some of the pollution from, let's say, the Boyer Slough works its way downstream and impacts our pollution levels coming out of our wastewater treatment plant? Is there a way to isolate the water just coming out of our plant so that we know whether, not that it really matters, I guess, again, it's a food chain, it's a ecosystem, but when we look at the failure of our neighbor's water treatment facility, how do we know whether some of our violations are arising from their failures as opposed to solely ours?
Your facility has your own pollution limits.
What's that called? Point source or something?
It's a point source discharge. Yes, absolutely. And there's a daily monitoring report. And so staff samples that water coming out of your pipe specifically. I'm not sure if it's on a daily basis. It's called a daily monitoring report.
It's my
but
understanding it's
that
daily.
I'm sorry.
It's my understanding it's daily.
Yeah, I thought so. And so that does isolate what is coming out of your pipe, absolutely. But what's significant about this is that all of the pollution sources that add up in upstream impacts have created a situation in the shallow areas of the lake near the shoreline throughout Lake Pend Oreille that there is a regulation, a cleanup plan that requires it requires all entities that are involved in government around this area to work together to reduce pollution inputs into that. It's really wonky. It's called a total maximum daily load. It's often referred to as a TMDL. And it sets a requirement that we are trying to get that area near the shoreline, which is most susceptible to pollution, down to 9 micrograms per liter of phosphorus. And phosphorus is one of the most concerning pollutants in our system. So that cleanup plan applies to the whole lake as far as the Long Bridge, and then it stops. And then so it stops before your discharge point. However, what I need to say next is that this is the water quality monitoring data from the sampling station that we call the Sandpoint wastewater outfall station. It's actually not at your outfall, it's upstream from your outfall, but it's downstream from the Long Bridge. And so it shows that those pollution, the pollution levels that have necessitated that cleanup plan for the main part of the lake, that pollution, every one of those dots that's above the red line indicates phosphorus that is above that pollution limit. So just because the current cleanup plan stops at the Long Bridge does not mean that the pollution stops there. It is coming down the river.
Jennifer, could you elaborate on what a guideline is versus a regulatory requirement? It says
It's a
guideline.
target.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a target. It's a regulatory limit. It's a targeted limit. Our region has been trying for 20 years to get the water quality down to that 9 micrograms per liter of phosphorus.
How are we doing?
Not very good. It hasn't gotten much better. It hasn't gotten much worse either, but there is a lot of improvement that could be made in collaboration between all of the agencies, Panhandle Health District, Department of Environmental Quality, the city of Sandpoint, the county, everyone. There's this wonderful document that I'd love to share at a different time called the Implementation Plan. And it has so many great ideas in it of how, and agreements were made 20 years ago by all of the entities saying, yeah, we're going to do all these things together. We're going to work really hard. And the ball got dropped. So it's time to revisit that. And that's a whole different conversation. Let's see. I think I'm done with that slide. Thanks for your questions. So I just want to talk about other upstream pollution sources, septic tanks that aren't functioning appropriately, land application of sewer plants. There's several different small community sewer plants that do land application. If those are not functioning properly, they can impact the water quality. Land use, whenever shoreline is disturbed and stormwater comes through, the sediment that goes into the water brings more phosphorus into the water. But also the Kootenai Pend Oreille Sewer District is a very significant upstream pollution source. They have recently learned that the new limits for their new permit, they're in a big rush to upgrade their facility and their permit is also expired. And they just learned that their new limits are going to be much more strict than they anticipated. So I just wanted to sort of foreshadow that it's time to move forward. And I've heard from Mayor Grimm that it's his #1 priority right now to get the problem at the Sandpoint facility fixed. And I'm super grateful to hear that and applaud that ambition. What I've seen though is that in Sandpoint's new draft comprehensive plan, this project of upgrading the sewer facility is on the mid-range schedule and not the short-range schedule. So it's a matter of, well, are we going to kick the can out and put it on the 5 to 10 year plan? Or are we going to just hurry up and do what we need to do to get it on the 1 to 5 year plan? I do recognize it's a huge project and it's going to require lots of funding and it's a big deal, but I think that it's time to roll up our sleeves and work together and make it happen. I would want to call your attention to a couple of your exhibits in your packet. I think the permit exhibit on page 1 just shows you right there that the permit, your current permit expired on November 30th, 2022. That administrative extension is not a free pass. The new permit is going to need to be completed soon. On your other exhibit, the water quality certification that is a part of the permitting process, on pages 7 and 8 of that document, first I'll say that that document acknowledges that the current plant cannot meet the limits in the permit. And so there's this acknowledgement and there's a concession that the city of Sandpoint must meet the final effluent limits within 5 years of that date, if of the date of the new permit, if upgrades to the existing plant are what is going to happen. You have 10 years if you build a whole new plant, and you'll see the dates on the slide. That 10-year period is up on December 1st, 2027. So essentially, the deadline is passed for upgrading the current facility, and a new facility needs to be built in 4 years to comply with this administrative extension. So yeah, it's a big lift, and I'm here to support you any way you can in making it, any way I can in making it. So it's going to take a lot of money, and I just want to give a quick rundown on, you know, I do understand that the city of Sandpoint, I worked with the former Greg Lanning, who used to work on the utilities, and I know that he and you all applied for some grants. Unfortunately, in that last funding cycle, Sandpoint did not rank very high in the criteria for getting grant and loan funding. However, Cooney Ponderay Sewer District actually ranked number 1. They got a $13 million construction loan. They have a $30,000 planning grant, and they are moving forward with getting a bonding measure in front of the voters. The city of Dover has an $82,000 planning grant, and they specifically said that was specifically designated to explore collaborating with the city of Sandpoint. And so that was their intention for that $82,000. I just want to point out that I'm sure everyone's well aware that Schweitzer was recently purchased by a big corporation called Altera. They do solely land application right now for their sewage waste, but at the rate that they are growing, they are going to need to come up with some better solutions. They've been expanding their land application numerous times, and I think that their growth is outpacing their capacity, and they have resources available. So I am really here to encourage y'all to collaborate with your friends and neighbors and acknowledge that when we do, our money goes farther, more can be accomplished, especially when considering that other of our neighbors have resources in their pocket ready to get started, and it could help jumpstart things for the city of Sandpoint. Also, the Department of Environmental Quality, I've talked with them about this a number of times, including Monday this week, and they 100% agree that a collaborative approach is the best solution for Lake Ponderay and the Ponderay River. They've also agreed that that would increase Sandpoint's ranking on the funding applications if it was a collaborative approach. Cooney Ponderay Sewer District is still very open to a collaborative approach. I talked today with Larry Ellis, a member of their board. He was attending the Cooney Bay Watershed Advisory Group, which I participate on, which is working on the cleanup plan for Boyer Slough. But he said absolutely he would be delighted to talk with the city of Sandpoint. And also Tom Trulock, who's the president of Schweitzer Mountain Utility. He has also expressed interest in collaboration. I want to suggest that if a collaborative solution also included the city of Dover, which has that $82,000, it could even possibly allow the city of Sandpoint to reclaim that high value property down at Memorial Field and get rid of that plant entirely. I know that's like pie in the sky, but I just have to say it. What this would take, it would take Sandpoint being a leader and reaching out your hand and inviting the others to talk about possibilities. There is a perception out there that Sandpoint has been the roadblock to these conversations in the past. And I'm just so excited with new leadership and new staff and just changes afoot in Sandpoint that maybe we could get some conversations going again. I would be absolutely delighted to help in any way I could, to convene groups of stakeholders, to get meetings set up, to invite all the parties to come together and have those initial conversations if I were to be requested that. I also just want to show this beautiful picture that was taken at the Sandpoint wastewater treatment plant. You probably all recognize the view a little bit. This was the cover shot on an environmental research. It was called Water Environment Research. It's a scientific journal. There was a peer-reviewed study published in that journal in September of 2023. And that study was conducted by Dr. Greg Moeller. And it showed that there is new innovative technology that can clean phosphorus almost 100% out of systems. It also works on pharmaceuticals, emerging chemicals like the fire retardants that are becoming a big problem these days, and is carbon negative. And I'm not here advocating for any one type of technology. I'm certainly not an engineer or anything of the sort, but I just wanted to highlight this to say that there's new technology out there that is less expensive than past types of technology that have been used. It's easier to use, and it is very functional for large levels of waste. It would allow, and doing whatever the system is in a collaborative approach for our whole community would allow us to accommodate the inevitable growth that we are going to experience, whether we like it or not. Yeah, it's gonna happen. And I think that it's wise to prepare for it and, leave some capacity for that. And so I urge you to consider collaborating with your neighbors and to build a state-of-the-art system with all of the entities that I've mentioned, maybe others. And thank you. That's all I have. I really appreciate your time very much.
Jennifer, thank you so much. I can't really tell you how much I appreciate ICL's concern and involvement on this issue. As we spoke this week, it is my #1 priority once we get the comp plan adopted, to rebuild a new wastewater plant in the city during the next 4 years. I've already begun the discussions with Dan McCracken, Regional Director for Idaho DEQ. We have some work that we can build upon. This is going to be the most expensive public works project in Bonner County history. We're going to need the public to be educated. It's likely going to come to the voters with a price tag of somewhere between $70 and $90 million, and that's going to be a bond request. So there's going to be an extensive education awareness effort that I hope you'll be a part of. We look forward to your support. And the council, I'm sure this has elicited a lot of questions. This is a long meeting. I'm happy to call a special meeting and inform the council on my plan and take your input on that. I guess I'll leave it as one question I have for you. In light of the ongoing violations and unfortunate reality that we're discharging E. coli into the river, one of the things I'm balancing is, do we immediately address that or embark on what, even under the best scenarios, is a multi-year collaborative process, which will lead to a multi-year funding and multi-year construction process. That's really what I'm weighing is, do we fix what we know is broken right now, or do we and stop the violations and the degradation of the water quality, or do we continue with the violations and the reality of our existing facility, which is disturbing at the very least, and keep violating and work towards a broader effort. And I've got some more research to do in terms of the reports, but that's for you and the public and the council, that's one of the big decisions to weigh out there. So thank
May I,
you.
Mr. Mayor?
You may.
I don't think that that's an either or question. I think that immediate work can be done to upgrade the facility while still convening with your neighbors to talk about long-term solutions, either at that location, which would, still benefit from the immediate upgrades. But I think it's a false choice to say we either have to talk with our neighbors or we need to move forward right now.
Yeah, no, I guess I do see that sliver of light. And just to put a end to this, because we've got a long meeting ahead of us, but one of the basic what I'm weighing is, and what the council will have to weigh is, do we proceed with a brand new plant, turnkey, this is the solution to be constructed? Or do we approach that goal with incremental elements that are built one piece at a time? For instance, we know that we could tackle the disinfection well right now, which would kill the E. coli. And that could be part of this larger plant design effort, but is it an incremental approach or design a brand new plant? And add on top of that, that plant has to run while we're doing all this. So it's like changing your tires while you're driving down the highway. So it's my number one priority for the public and the council and you and your supporters. And I will get this done in the next 4 years.
That's awesome news. Thank you.
Yeah.
May I say one more thing?
Sure.
I've been attending the Cooney Pond Ray Sewer District meetings, board meetings for some time now. And I've heard a lot of talk about these new systems being sort of plug and play. And that's still a lot of work, but it might not be as difficult as you might imagine.
Yeah, and new technology, visiting with DEQ, I won't name names, but they reference the fact that you can go to a trade show and you will have 12 engineers say this is the greatest, amazing, most incredible new technology. And only to find out, and these are not little dollars, that the technology is not as perfected as we had hoped. And their general comments were tried and tested is reliable, especially when you're talking about 80, 90, $100 million of taxpayer dollars. So yeah, we have to approach it, give it a lot of thought. I have a call tomorrow. I invite any council members who want to join me at 2:30 with Stantec, who's been doing a bunch of our historical work on collection and design. You're all welcome to join me in my office at 2:30. Well,
Mr. Mayor,
they
they cannot
quorum.
all join
Quorum,
you
quorum.
in your office.
Thank you.
But two of them may
Thank you,
join
Wanda.
you.
If anyone would like to, please, and we don't violate the quorum requirements, please contact me.
All right, I would like
Anyone want to address Jennifer before we move on?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to just thank you very much. 149% can't even go there. That's ridiculously horrible. Thank you for bringing that to everybody's attention. Can we test the stormwater flowing into Sand Creek? I've asked Carissa that before to ask you. You don't have to answer me right now. Because I think the leaves in the storm drains are adding a lot of phosphorus in the water, and I'd like to see how that comes out, if we can check that. And I know as a city, we put our leaves gratefully out into the road for the city to pick up, so we don't have to burn them and haul them. I compost mine. But they get caught in the curb and they get wet and they stay there. And I think it's something that we need to educate the public on, pulling those out away from the curb with a hard rake to get them out so that they can be, and then maybe have like a vacuum or something part of I know this is kind of off topic, but not really, because it is the phosphorus going in there from the stormwater drains, and maybe suck up the last of the remaining leaves. I don't know, something I would like us to work
Councilwoman
on.
Duquette, you're going to have a lot of fun, because once we get the wastewater plant done, the next thing I want to tackle is our stormwater. Once we hit 10,000 people, you may not be aware, but we will be required to treat our stormwater outflow per the EPA. And that means looking at ways to treat and filter our stormwater at our discharge points. One of the ways we're going to tackle that is we're going to look at impact fees and a stormwater impact fee to help us absorb the cost of upgrading and treating our stormwater. So lots of good things we can do to improve and leave this place better than I inherited it.
I thought we had over 10,000 people.
No,
That's the last census I saw.
correct. So no, look
Okay.
at the sign.
Huh?
The sign when you come to town. 9,000 and change.
The census online.
Oh, so those are, it's called the American Community Survey. Those are estimates. So it's the
Okay.
decennial census. It's every 10 years that triggers that 10,000. That will trigger that 10,000 stormwater. Thank you, Jennifer. Any other comments for Jennifer by the council? Appreciate you informing us and look forward to your collaboration support on this.
Thank you.
Next, under new business, does council need to take a quick bathroom break?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Can we take a 4-minute, is that enough time? Hopefully a 4-minute break? Sure. Returning from recess at 8:05 PM, moving on to item number 8B, Travers Park We Go Round Art Panels Project. The Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation Commission recommended for the selection of art panels to be installed in the new We Go Round at Travers Park. I now yield the floor to Arts and Historic Preservation Officer, Heather Upton. Thanks, Heather.
Good evening again. So in front of you, I have a bright slideshow. I thought I'd waken us all up here. I'm so excited to present to you all the recommendations for the Travers Park Art Call. So what I'd like to do is kind of just take you through that process again of what this is, share the artists with you, and then end with those recommendations. And I look forward to any questions and feedback. So just as a reminder, this art call, great opportunity brought to us. It was kind of a short timeline, but it was a moment that we definitely didn't want to miss to be able to showcase local artists in our park. So the call opened on March 4th through March 11th. It ended. It was for 4 panels on the accessible playground equipment called the We Go Round. There was a stipend offered to artists for $250 per panel. And again, there were 4 panels available. Framework, the criteria, it must be original art. No IA generated images allowed. That's a whole new thing in our world today, right? This is a barrier-free playground that's all about inclusivity. So we encouraged individuals to showcase all accessible panel, for example, a child in a wheelchair. There were digital art guidelines that were set up that came from the playground equipment company that they had to follow. We also loved the kind of author tie to this park. So the city gave preference to art from illustrators that are local to Bonner County or that have art featured in locals artist books. And we, let everyone know they can submit 1 panel or they can do 4 panels in a story form. Oh, well, sorry, before I the way that we shared this with the community, which in understanding we had a short timeline, we put it out on all of our social media networks and so that was Engage Sandpoint on Facebook and on the website. And the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission did a really great job being boots on the ground, sharing the word too. We also shared it with a lot of our local partners, such as POAC and the library and the museum and anyone we could think of. And one of the things that I love about art calls is that you just have all these artists come to you, some that are well-known in the community and some that are very new. And I thought that that's a great example of what happened with this art call. We had quite a few individuals submit art that aren't necessarily artists, but they're teachers or the parents, but they really wanted to participate in this project. So I was really excited to see that. There were even a couple that were like, I've never done this before, but I'm a mom and I really believe in this playground and I'm really excited to be a part of it. And so that was really fun to see too. So I just wanted to share some of those stories because I thought that was pretty powerful. So now we're going to go through the journey of the 7 applicants that made all of the requirements. And there were only 7 submittals that did make all the requirements. So here we go. We have Sarah Schaefer, and these are her 4 panels. And I'm not going to give any commentary on each of the artists. I'm just going to share that in recommendation from the commission. Sandy Gale and her 4 panels. Let me know if I'm going too fast, but I know it's kind of a long meeting tonight. Lori Reed with her 4. Jacqueline Eckersley with her 4 panels. Jessica Jansen and her 4 panels. Ellie Sassness presenting her 4 panels. And Emma Taylor, this is our last artist, and she presented 1 panel. So really hard decisions. There was a lot of really positive commentary about all of them. And, you know, hopefully we'll find other opportunities in the community to showcase these artists and they can apply again. I always love setting the seed with these art calls. But in the end, the commission had a really wonderful conversation. And again, this decision-making was done at the regular Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission meeting on the 12th by the commission members. And through that discussion, the decision was made on the 4 panels from Lori Reed. And they went with the 4 panels of just the 1 artist because they felt like it was most cohesive. All of the art was very different, which I think is powerful. But in terms of this 1 playground equipment, they thought that that made the most sense. They also believed that this was very relatable to children. It was colorful, engaging. There was a lot of movement. It told a story. And she also, as an artist, has an MFA as an illustrator. And I have to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. One of the commission members was like, well, would you find the teeth to be a little scary on that one girl? And Cami and I, who both have young children, were like, well, have you ever met like a, 7-year-old? It's pretty spot on. We're already investing in braces. So I thought that was kind of fun. Does anybody have any questions? So again, the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission has recommended to all of you these 4 panels by Lori Reed for the playground and equipment that we grow on at Trappers Park.
Is Lori Reed a local artist?
Yes. In fact, she participated in the STCU utility box wrap project, and she has those really cute swimmers right by the Jack in the Box on one of the boxes.
So my question would be, so there is a recommendation from the council for Lori, and then we're going to decide whether or not.
Well, in the end, it's up to the body of the council to make that final decision on the art call. One thing that we need to keep in mind is that this has to be submitted with the playground equipment, which is like ASAP. So the decision would need to be made tonight to be able to take this opportunity for this art call.
Yeah, Councilwoman Rule, as with all of our commissions and boards, they most often just give us recommendations. So barring confirmation of this recommendation, we could look at other things too. We could do a blind poll. We could their names in a hat. So I think it's open, but there is a time deadline for submission to the playground equipment manufacturer, just due to the ordering of the equipment and getting these panels. And I apologize for that time.
So,
sorry,
Mr. So I guess I'm just going to make my comment right now. I actually love these. They're whimsical. They're lovely. But in my observation, or what I'm perceiving, is they are all girls. And there's no ethnic variability, in my opinion. So I'm not necessarily opposed or for, but I just wanted to point that out to the council. And I don't know if when this final art, or this appears that this is the final art, if any tweaks, shall we say, could be made.
I definitely appreciate that commentary, and I worked with Cheryl on the solicitation to truly make sure I understood a procurement process. And in order to make sure that this is fair to all artists, we have to review the artwork as accepted from all of the artists. And if we were to give one artist an opportunity to change, then we'd have to go back to all of the artists, reopen the call. And unfortunately, our timeline is just so short. But I really appreciate that comment.
I do have a follow-up on that. Do you happen to know the medium that was used for this art? Was this graphic software or was this hand-drawn?
You know, I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
Would Ellie happen to know, since you're a graphic designer? Okay. In response to that, and maybe Cheryl can.
We'll get Cheryl up here to answer that one.
But is it not uncommon once we, we solicit submissions for something like this, whether it's a proposal or a bid of some sort, and then we work with the winner of that proposal to refine, because I think, I agree. My first thought was, okay, I'm a father of a daughter, but it's all girls. If we want to be inclusive in our playground, I think having at least one panel that had a boy on it. And I was also thinking, if this is as simple as a graphic, an Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop piece of art, it could be changed within minutes, I would assume.
Because there was no official evaluation of this.
Mhm.
It doesn't follow like typical RFPs and stuff, because then, yes, you can negotiate directly at that point with the highest scoring proposal. That's not how this was done. So because it wasn't done like that, I would not recommend allowing one artist to make a change and not opening it up to all of them if they wanted to make changes, to let them make changes. I wouldn't recommend that. So if you're gonna want a change made, then you open it to all of them to, do you want to make any changes to your art submitted? Maybe they don't, which is fine. But if it's offered to one, it should be offered to all because it was not formally scored.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilman Spiro.
I solved the problem. That girl's Puerto Rican, and that is a boy with long blonde hair, which I see often at a restaurant. And that girl has red hair, and I think we're good. Thank you. He looks Puerto Rican to me.
Thank you, Councilman Spiro. I truly appreciate
It's inclusive.
the lens that you're applying to this.
I love that Cheryl keeps us in line, and I really appreciate it. As an artist myself, I'm all like, well, so it's good that we have Cheryl.
Yeah, and
What-
I think, Heather, just moving forward, there's always lessons learned and, today's world, what it is. I just would ask you, convey to the Arts Commission that keep these things in mind as we proceed. And I guess I would offer to the council the alternative in order to meet the deadline for this drop ship date to have the playground activated and constructed as soon as possible. We could revert to the standard art that comes with the panel. This is an option to do custom art while they're being printed, and maybe we could even replace one in the future. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest. If we wanted to maybe pick one or two and then do kind of a prefabricated art selection from the playground improvement company, and then later look at, of course, this, I have to work with the team on this, but it would be cost more, but maybe replace a panel down the road, or we could maybe phase this in a little bit.
Any other questions from the council at this time before we hear from the public?
Just one comment. I did think the long blonde ponytail could be a boy too.
Thanks. I see it off.
Art is the eye of the beholder, or beauty is the eye of the Are there any members of the public who would like to comment?
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
go
When
ahead,
you,
Councilwoman
when you
Duquette.
said, I'm sorry, when you said that you opened it to the public,
That's correct.
I think that's awesome because that would have been my question. How did they get a chance to respond?
So we put this through as a solicitation process. And through that, and then we also had a fast link on our website that would take them right to that solicitation process. So that's where they would see everything. And then anyone that is interested in proceeding forward, they would submit their artwork to
I
myself.
see. You didn't put these finals out for
No.
the public to
No.
weigh in on.
That's correct. And yeah, with every art call, you learn, and our world's constantly changing. And so it's good to kind of see what these parameters are, but also we always want artists to have kind of a freedom of expression and ability. And do you want me to go through the other artists one more time? Or,
I looked at them.
okay.
We have them right in front of
Oh,
us.
fantastic.
Any members of the public wish to comment on this item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Council members, I'd entertain a motion to approve the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission's recommendation for the 4 panels submitted by local artist Lori Reed for the Travis Park Art Hall for the We Go Round Playground equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Dick, second by Councilwoman Rule. Any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Heather, and convey our appreciation to all the artists, the very talented artists that submitted. Look forward to their future submissions, and thanks to the Arts, Cultural, and Historic Commission for their work on this.
Thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Next, under new business, item 8C, SCADA Upgrade Contract Award. Adam, thanks for staying so late.
Give me 1 second here.
So this is the city's RFP process. Council will consider approval of professional services agreements with B Electric for SCADA upgrades. This is Adam Skog, our IT analyst, and then some.
So, I'm here proposing for the SCADA for the city here. Thank you for all your time here tonight as well. So my first question I figured I'd take and kind of go over is, what is SCADA? Because the terminology SCADA kind of sounds scary just right off the bat. So simply put, it more so just gathers information, makes it so that people can see a screen, and be able to automate and assist in procedures that would otherwise take a lot more staff, as well as the time to do that. In the water treatment plant system here that we have in Sandpoint, it's really for getting clean water to the faucets and the taps of the citizens. Some similar things that a lot of people can kind of, see in their own homes would be smart thermostats are similar to SCADA systems. Granted, they aren't called SCADA, they're called Internet of Things, but they do the similar thing where you can say, I want to know what my temperature is, I want to adjust my temperature, and be able to kind of set a temperature that you want to have. Alarm systems, and even modern cars, fuel gauges, and even modern gas pedals and all the stuff in your car that tells you what your car is doing. So it's really the link between the equipment and the technology. A little bit of the background of this. Originally, the SCADA updates were identified in 2021 in several of the different capital improvement plans, including the collection systems, water systems master plan, and the wastewater treatment plant facility plan. It was initiated by the city in 2021 with an agreement to have a consultant take and do discovery and prepare an RFP. That was eventually moved in-house to the city due to multiple reasons. Mid-2023, the internal development of the RFP was revised and put out for bid. Early 2024, this project was solicited and now is pending contract award. So I figure we'd probably also want to kind of understand why we should do this. A lot of the systems we currently have are old and outdated, as many of you are aware, even with our wastewater system. And so those systems are no longer secure, and some of them don't even have automation. So the cybersecurity threats that we are facing as cities are growing every day. Even today, our president, as well as the EPA, released several statements about water treatment, wastewater treatment plant facilities, and the fact that they need to be secured. And they're urging states and governments all across the United States to take action. The backbone of the SCADA system here, our servers are at their end of usable life, and they need to be updated.
They run on Windows XP, is that correct?
No, we're running 2008 R2 currently.
2000? Yeah.
2008.
Oh, 2008.
Yeah, which prevents us from being able to secure as we should be. Without going into too much detail on the public forum, I can give updates privately on that. The current age of our SCADA automation software is also out of date due to the servers and the operating systems they're running on. They can't be updated. And then the lack of automation in a lot of places and equipment failures have left our crews many times unaware of issues until citizens have called and said, hey, we have sewage backing up and we were unaware. So bringing in the automation to that would ultimately increase public safety and overall, like our crews would be able to handle situations before those types of things would happen. So what would this do? This would modernize our current critical SCADA infrastructure across all the different departments, our wastewater, water treatment, as well as our utilities districts, giving us the ability to quickly respond to incidences, as well as bring all that stuff into more of a centralized location where we could all see that data. And I mean, the people that would be monitoring that. It would secure our SCADA environment, bring in new equipment, new security standards and best practices. One of the big things is we'd be standardizing our lift stations across the city. Currently, we don't have any standardization. That actually would save us costs now and later, due to the fact that we wouldn't have to be trying to get parts that are no longer available to get systems to continue keeping those systems running. But ultimately, because they can design these things in-house and then they can just bring them on site and install them, we would save a lot of money in the long run. It would centralize monitoring and alerting across all the different departments, creating situational awareness, and in the end, increasing staff efficiency and decreasing downtime. So I try to keep it short and to the point. Threw a little picture on here of what our wastewater treatment plant is currently as well. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We also have the team here to answer questions as well if they get technical.
Right. Thank you so much, Adam. Before I open up to council, I'll just mention that, at the heart of this, I've mentioned it a couple times, with an intrusion into our system, a terrorist or someone else could potentially open a valve through these systems that would release potentially chemicals or change the pH and chemistry of our water. So I'm really excited to move forward with this and get us on a modern system. With that, any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I just
Duquette.
have a real quick question. I looked up what a lift station was. Can you see these? Are they out on top of the ground?
Yes,
They are.
some of them are, some of them aren't. It depends on what you're looking at, the portion of it. All the computer equipment and the sensors, or the things that go to the sensors are typically up above ground in a cabinet. Obviously the pumps and such are down underground.
We got to go for a drive, Councilwoman Duquette.
I'm going to, I saw that map.
You and me.
Get on my bike.
No, or we can go for a bike ride.
Come on.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schreiber.
this is probably a pretty obvious question, but we've talked a lot about upgrading our wastewater treatment plant. And I just wanted to ask, this is gonna be compatible with a new plant, I'm assuming?
So yes, the plan right now is to actually put minimal money towards the wastewater treatment plant. Basically get it back up and functional so they can operate as they should. And the idea is that there's going to be an upgrade to the water treatment plant in the near future. So minimizing the money we put towards it now, so then we can actually put the money where it needs to go.
Gotcha. So do you expect the few pieces that you're putting into the wastewater treatment plant now, do you think they'll be able to be reused in the new plant, or it's just too early to tell?
It's super complicated, because of the different equipment that will be replaced. There's a possibility, but I wouldn't count on it.
Okay.
The cost that we'd be putting towards the wastewater treatment plant would be minimal, in the overall project budget. I want to say it's less than 10% right now, maybe 15% of the whole project budget.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And Councilman Schreiber, just as an example, I had similar concerns, but this would allow alerting within the last year and a half, that stormwater circle there. That's where our sewage goes if there's an overflow or lack of capacity, too much flow. We literally had raw sewage covering most of this footprint. This type of SCADA system would allow those plant operators to be alerted by this, failure or peak flows, instead of somebody calling the city saying, I think you have a problem at your stormwater plant at 2 a.m. So this is, I think, well worth the investment, despite the fact that, yes, we're gonna ultimately replace some of this. This is just one part of this overall package. I think you see that, but
Yeah, I did notice that most of it was for the lift stations and not for the plant itself, which I'm assuming will probably stay unless we completely redesign our wastewater treatment system.
Yeah, because we did have discussions about putting more money towards the wastewater treatment plant, and making everything, to be able to lift and shift into the new plant. But the costs were not conducive to the fact that we could be 4 or 5 years down the road before that equipment would be needed.
Okay.
So due to the plans in the future, it was better to just take and get things functional in the meantime.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah.
council members have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Are there any members of the public who would wish to comment on this item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Gentlemen and team, thanks for coming. Appears that there's not a whole lot of inquiry into the technical aspects. It's probably above all of our heads. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution professional services agreement with B&E Electric for SCADA upgrades.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Schreiber, second by Dick. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Dick.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Adam. Drive safely and appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Next, council will consider item 8D, award of the Fifth and Pine Traffic Signal Project construction to Sonray Enterprises LLC. I'll know you have the floor to construction manager Holly Ellis for more information.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have a brief presentation for you today. Many are familiar with this project, but just we'll go into a little bit of background, just so we're all on the same page. This is a timeline kind of going into the history of where we started. Back in 2012, Sandpoint identified this project to be funded by impactor fees from developers. And this was under the two-way reversion originally. In 2013 to 2017, Sandpoint and the Idaho Transportation Department agreed to reconfigure US 2 on Fifth Avenue. With that reconfiguration, we also had a streets transfer from ITD, having the downtown streets, to Sandpoint. In 2019, Sandpoint coordinated with ITD under the development of the multimodal transportation plan, and they worked together on the east-west connection short-term plan. I have that on the following slide, but it's the importance here is to highlight that ITD was on board at that time with that plan. In 2020, that multimodal plan was adopted. And then in 2023, the mayor at the time directed staff to focus on implementation on the east-west connection short-term plan. These are some of the comments that we heard from the community during the multimodal transportation plan development. Kind of the takeaway that we heard was that cut through traffic in South Sandpoint was a concern for folks on Superior Lake, Michigan. We also heard frustrations at about the traffic signal at Church and Fifth Avenue and that timing. And we also heard concerns about the one-way traffic and frustrations about the one-way traffic on Pine Street. That's between Fifth and Fourth. So hearing these concerns, the multimodal plan developed an east-west connection short-term plan. The improvements proposed in this plan include converting Pine Street to two-way travel between Fifth and Fourth. For that conversion to happen, ITD provided that signal at Church that Sandpoint originally was not on board to have it moved from Pine to Church, would have to go back to Pine. So Fifth and Pine would be converted to a full access signalized intersection. Fifth and Church intersection would be converted to a side street stop controlled intersection. And then because of the site issues or limited site issues because of the curve on the highway at 6th and Euclid, those would be converted to a right in, right out intersection. Picking up at the timeline in more recent time, again, in May, the city staff presented a multimodal transportation plan update to council, and the mayor directed staff to work on this short-term plan. In August, city council approved a memorandum of understanding with the Idaho Transportation Department, and that is for design. So Sandpoint agreed to fund the project, both from a design perspective and construction with ITD standards that we would agree to follow. On August 16th, City Council approved a professional service agreement with Welch Comer Engineering for design. And then in December 20th of 2023, City Council approved the preliminary design of the traffic signal and approved staff to take the project out to bid. At this same council meeting, City Council also revised the truck route to remove Pine, First, and Superior from downtown. And since that time, this project did go out to bid and 3 bids were received. So this project was bid in accordance with Idaho Code 672805A and city procurement. We received 3 bids, and Sunray Enterprises was the lowest and the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. The award amount is $483,000. And this is within budget. And again, this is funded by transportation impact fees by developers. If this project was to be awarded, adjacent property owners, downtown businesses, and emergency services would be notified prior to construction. Construction would begin after Labor Day and take up to 12 weeks. And the last step with ITD would be to sign a cooperative agreement. I think that would come to you at the next council meeting, and that would finalize what operations and maintenance of this traffic signal and what that would look like. And the requested action is before you.
Thank you, Holly. Appreciate all your work on this. You know, this project began before my administration, but certainly honoring the effort of bidders and the intent of the council at the time to move forward. I know it's been a lengthy and sometimes passionate discussion. At this point, I would entertain any questions from the council for Holly.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schreiber.
So you had an open house workshop, whatever we want to call it, for the public on the 22nd. I read the comments that the public left, at least in writing. Did you do any changes to the design to address those comments at all?
No, the design that was put out to bid was what was brought before council, just finalized.
Okay. Yeah, there's a comment that said something along the lines of the person didn't feel heard, that they were just being told what the project was. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
you know, Councilman Schreiber, having sat through and attended many transportation related projects at the state level, the city level, to some degree, there's a momentum that occurs in these projects where you've spent considerable time and money to design the projects. You know, I understand that frustration from the public, but you know, ideally that input is taken early on in the project about the design and there's work towards a consensus. Obviously, one comment, 5 comments affecting a project that's going to affect the whole city. I mean, there's some balance there of how much redesign you do based on comment and concern. Not dismissing that, but it's a balance, and I would reflect on the publication and lack of anyone. Are you here to testify on this, Amelia? Is there may be some people online, but I guess what I'm saying is I hear your point, and we'll do everything we can on future road construction projects, as I mentioned, to involve the public right from the start.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Duquette?
yeah. Holly, I appreciate all your time. You have spent a lot of time with me answering my questions. I wasn't able to put anything out there. I wasn't on council at the time. I have so many issues with this, and I don't want to take a lot of time, but I'm just going to go through them really quickly just to get them out there. The survey had 168 responses. I know there were more people at that first in 2019, 20, 21. That was during the COVID years. I remember filling that out. I looked through that today just on the 2 questions that asked, what were the issues, the worst issues on the streets, and did it make you stop using that? I got halfway through that 560-page thing and found only 5 that mentioned Pine Street. I do understand people wanted the 2-way on there. I wish we had had, of course, input earlier, options, like what else could be done with that before that expensive light moves again. I do not believe it will alleviate much cut through anywhere, because I live on Florence, right up here at the end of the lake of Lake Street. People cut across there to avoid the Boyer light. I mean, I watch them. They cut across, it doesn't matter. They will do, lots of people are in the habit of not going through stoplights and going through town. And now that there's going to be 2 lights, or there's going to be Boyer, and then there's going to be Pine Street, 5th. And I just don't see that that's going to alleviate anything. It's going to increase the traffic for the businesses, that lovely little pub that you said outside, that little cafe. I think it's going to put Boyer Light in a less effective view, so that the couplet curve, whatever it is called now, is more desirable. I know the public, we've had issues with that before. I will never get my car. I go down Church when I come off I-95. I'll never get across at a stop sign to get into the neighborhood, because I don't use Pine or go through South Sandpoint. I wanted a crosswalk across, and I know you said why we couldn't have, but so when I walk down the sidewalk from west side to east side on Pine, I am now going to have to go across Pine once, walk down Pine, crosswalk again to get to the other side. And I will probably jaywalk also to get across there. I wished we could have had a better crosswalk to save time for people. When the light was on Pine Street, this tree, last but not least, this tree was there. Trucks made the turn. It wasn't this big wide sweeping turn. I know there's another tree 15 feet away, but I think that attitude is hurting the urban tree canopy, and in the long run, it's hurting us. And I am going.
Councilwoman Duquette, just pardon me for interrupting for a second. I just want to remind you and emphasize that this isn't Holly's project. Just if you could just hear me out. I hear your frustration, but your frustration is the process and the former decision to make. So I just want to make sure that your statements aren't addressed at, and your frustration at Holly. She's doing what she's been directed to do. I'm not saying that that's what you're doing. It just, could kind of feel that way. So
Okay,
can you
I'm
just-
sorry. Do you feel like that, Holly?
You don't have to answer that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I have
Yeah.
talked to her a lot.
I
you
know, I
And
know.
I said I've
This is being
appreciated
recorded,
all
though.
the help she has given me to try to understand this. It
Absolutely.
doesn't
absolutely.
mean that I have to like it.
No,
and I
no,
just-
I just want to make that distinction between.
Okay, and I
you're
do
just
get
like-
excited. I do get passionate.
Your
I'm not.
dislike of the project. And this is another learning moment. I should have read it more specifically. Are there questions from council? And Fonda can correct me if I'm wrong, but questions, and then once there's a motion to approve or deny, then it's the opportunity for council to deliberate and air your grievances or state why you're voting one way or the other. It's a good learning lesson for us, but I just wanted to throw that out there because
So have I done this wrong? Do I have to wait for comments after it's?
You should wait for either deliberations or
Okay.
the comments.
Okay. Okay, I will wait to finish my homage to the tree that goes.
I respect, I appreciate that, and thank you.
I am learning.
We all are. Thank you, Councilwoman Duquette. Are there any questions for Holly at this time from the council? Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the Cedar Street Reconstruction Project Professional Service Agreement with HMH Engineer, no, sorry. Thank you.
Sorry.
I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the Fifth and Pine Street Traffic Signal Project Construction Contract Award for Sunray Enterprises.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Welker, second by Spiro. Any discussion?
May I please just pay homage to this Norway maple that is going away because of this project. There's an IDL site, and I spoke to a gentleman in Coeur d'Alene today who helped me with this, that tells the eco benefits of all of the city placed trees in Sandpoint. It's an amazing site. This tree annually, the tree canopy itself has reduced 11.5 cubic feet of runoff, absorbing it through its leaves. It has removed 3.5 pounds of pollutants from the air. It has sequestered annually 368 and some hundredths pounds of carbon dioxide from the air. Its lifetime carbon storage is 7,451 and 71 hundredths pounds, and its CO2 storage is 27,322 and 93 hundredths pounds. It has done a great job for the city, and I hate to see these trees go, especially since it was there when the other stoplight was there and it didn't need to be.
Thank you.
I've spoken for the trees, I'm done.
Thank you, Councilwoman Duquette. Any other council deliberation?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schreiber?
Yeah, I also wanted to thank you, Holly, for reaching out to me personally and meeting one-on-one and walking me through this project. I also still have concerns about it, even with the current design. The National Association of City Transportation Officials says that standard curb radii are 10 to 15 feet, and anything exceeding 15 feet should be the exception. There's also a direct correlation between curb radius and the severity of accidents at an intersection. I think that the majority of the issues with the intersection could be alleviated with the elimination of a right turn lane, which I don't believe is necessary. We had discussion about the left turn lane at Church being very crucial, and I think it is because you have oncoming traffic, you have pedestrians crossing that could stop a left turning vehicle, but this is a T intersection that does not have any of those problems. Traffic's gonna be free flowing the entire light cycle. So we simply don't need that right turn lane. That would alleviate the public's concerns about parking because we wouldn't have to get rid of the parking. It would save the tree. It would reorient the intersection in a way that we could reduce the curb radius to the recommended industry standards. And a lot of cities around the country are coming to the realization that expanding roadways does not actually reduce traffic, and it just increases costs. And so I would like to, look at this from a fiscally responsible standpoint and not add an extra lane when one isn't necessary, and it won't alleviate our problems.
Thank you, Councilman Schreiber. Any further council discussion?
I just have one comment about the parking issue that some of the comments we received addressed or were two, and I'm looking just to confirm right now on Google Maps, you've got street view. And some of the neighbors said they'd be losing the street parking. In fact, we have 4-hour parking limits on Pine Street through there. So the neighbors who are using that for overnight parking are actually in violation of our laws. So the neighbors have perhaps benefited from a lack of enforcement, but there were comments about us taking away street parking on Pine Street, but that street parking is currently for 4-hour max time limit. And some people suggested maybe a permit system where residents could get a street permit. Those are things we could talk about in the future as far as addressing, you know, people who feel like, and I don't know, maybe we won't be enforcing those street parking limits after this turn lane is implemented, but the turn lane is only, I don't know how many feet, 100 feet or so. It's also on the other side of the street where there's currently a 4-hour limit on parking.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, there are businesses on that that operate during business hours and need that parking for their customers.
And I don't think there's any plan to take that away on the west side of the street, as far as I understand.
North side of the street or?
Sorry, the south side of the street.
So there would be no parking between 5th and 4th on Pine, both sides of the street, because we'd have 3 travel lanes for one block.
Okay, for one.
So all the parking's gone.
Any further council discussion? I'll add, and you can convene, I won't likely get to vote on this. I was hoping we could delay this project back in December. But one of the foremost things in my mind is our reputation as a city. When people are bidding and responding to our solicitations, many of the bidders are not going to make a dollar and lose money. And the ones that are selected, there's a huge effort to put these bids together, probably very late nights. And I think we always have to remember that we will be here for a while and people have a long memory. So when we put things out to bid and they come in at budget, I feel obliged to some degree to respect the private sector who takes the time to bid on our projects. So with that, Holly, I want to say, call it a second bite at the apple. The project did come in with the contingencies and our other obligations to move the streetlight a little bit under budgeted authority. I believe by maybe 70,000-80,000. Is that about right? If things go according to plan?
Yes.
So I think we may have still some budget authority in this project to look at other additional enhancements in this area. I did visit with Holly briefly about what can we do about a crossing west of Euclid that Councilman Welker brought up. You know, maybe even a little rain shelter like the spot bus while you're waiting so you're not getting wet. Maybe bollards, something to further enhance safety or concerns of potential safety. So I think we may still get to enhance this before it's all said and done. I guess I just leave it at that. Any further council discussion? With that, this would be, any members of the public wish to comment? We've already done that. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Duquette?
I have to go first. To be a team player, sure. Yes.
Counselor Dick?
Yes.
Counselor Rule?
Yes.
Counselor Sprow?
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber?
No.
Counselor Welker?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes 5-1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, under new business, we're getting there. Item 8E, Cedar Street Reconstruction Project Design Engineering Service Contract. Council will consider approval of an agreement with HMH Engineering for the design services related to Cedar Street Reconstruction Project. I now yield the floor back to Holly.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So an overview of the Cedar Street reconstruction project. Some background for you. In 2020, Sandpoint engaged Infrastructure Management Services, IMS, to provide a pavement condition report. The purpose of this report was to objectively quantify our pavement condition, and we used this assessment to help us determine when and where to invest in our streets. So the van equipped with lasers drove every city street and provided a condition index between 0 and 100, 0 being very poor and 100 being excellent. Sandpoint's approach to street investments has been balanced between maintenance and before it fails. That pavement condition report is really targeting pavement maintenance and then fixing failing streets, which is what we're hearing from residents. If we didn't fix streets that had already failed, they would never make it to the top of that pavement condition index because it's not cost effective to rebuild roads. It is more cost effective to repave or maintain. Just a couple highlights in recent years, what Sandpoint was able to do with the pavement budget, it increased from $250 a year to $500. And then in 2022, a resort city tax was passed, and a lot of that funding goes towards street maintenance. And I think it about doubled that in pavement investment again. So with that new resort city tax money, we are able to do more pavement maintenance than we did in the past. And so here we have the Cedar Street reconstruction project. This project was, I think, floated at the time that we went for that resort city tax. This project would reconstruct Cedar Street between Division and Lincoln Avenue. Cedar Street is a collector. There are 3 road classifications that we have in town: local roads, collector, and arterials. So from a volume perspective, collector falls right in the middle. So this is an important east-west connection from east and west Sandpoint. You have residential neighborhoods to the west, and there's actually the library on this part of Cedar Street, and then it, connects to the east side of town. The pavement condition along this project varies between poor and fair condition according to that pavement condition assessment that was completed. Reasons for this is there are stormwater issues in this area. We are lacking stormwater infrastructure. There have been increased development in this area, so you've had increased traffic from truck equipment to actually build those developments. There's local truck traffic on this road, and the asphalt is just aging, and there is an inadequate road base. There is also a water main on this project. It's currently 6 inches, which is undersized. It's also located out of the roadway, and as Eric Bush described tonight, it's better to keep our water mains under the roadway so it's protected and it's better for our maintenance. So with this project, we would upsize that water main to an 8-inch so that we don't have any capacity issues in that area, and locate it under the road. So here is the proposed improvements. We would have a new road base, asphalt, stormwater improvements, curb and gutter, and sidewalks on both sides of the street. The typical section in front of you is from our UATP. The top is kind of a more technical version of it, and the bottom is a more cartoon. And again, the other improvement is to upsize that water main. So from left to right, we have a 6-foot sidewalk, and that's in accordance with our complete streets resolution and our Sandpoint sidewalk detail. That provides that 6-foot sidewalks are needed on collector roads. We also have a planter strip that will plant trees in accordance with our urban forestry management plan. And then again, that street section is 12-foot lanes in accordance with that urban area transportation plan with curb and gutter. This plan does show sharrows. And again, this is a concept and a starting point.
May I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead,
Could
Councilman.
you go back to that slide, Holly?
Sure.
Why do we need 12-foot vehicle lanes here?
So this is, when I put this slide together, I had to think of and come up with what's in alignment with our code. 12-foot lanes is in alignment with our code. So if there was any deviation from that, that could be directed by council, or we could have workshops in the future to get the design, but this concept is developed from what we currently have, and our current code points to the UATP, which provides 12-foot lanes. And I would also add that when you do have sharrows, it seems that generally they do put wider lanes when there are sharrows.
Does the, I'm sorry, does the UATP distinguish between collectors and arterials? I assume it does.
It does. So there are probably 12 typical sections for a collector road, but we only have a 60-foot right of way. So then there are 3 typical sections to choose from. And again, it's just a starting point and a concept, but this is where our, that UATP is a guiding document, and it's in our code. It's our starting point.
Okay. I would just put forth a proposal to council that we consider narrowing that to 10-foot travel lanes.
You're here.
I've currently been diving deep into strong towns, and this is a big issue that they've been talking about. And I feel like this is our moment. So I say before we move into any final design, we look at narrower travel lanes through here.
Thank you, Councilman Walker. I strongly support that. I guess I have a question for legal, and maybe you don't need to answer it on the spot. You know, code policy deviation from our standards. Do you happen to know, do we have the ability to deviate from these standards on a, like right now? Or thoughts on that?
Well, this is your initial concept, so I would wait until you have a final design proposal, but you do have a right to deviate from code as long as you make findings for that.
Yeah, council, I would strongly encourage and support Councilman Welker's perspective. 12-foot, it's my understanding, AASHTO standards would allow down to 10-foot lanes, and obviously more asphalt, more heat island effect, more runoff. The volume of this traffic, the opportunity for it to become a drag strip, the perception of a wider street versus a narrow street on the subconscious of a driver increases speeds. I would prefer maybe even some wider planting strips and narrower lanes, but I defer to you to direct that action.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Rule?
I would comment that all the factual reading that I've done for probably more than 8 years now, narrower lanes are traffic calming, number one. And absolutely agree with that, and maybe even proceed to change code so that we don't have to go through this at some other point, maybe not right at this point. And then while I have the floor, at the Division Lincoln end, it looks like there's a little blip in the lot lines there. Is that going to affect anything with this project? It looks like that final private property, I don't know if that's the utility out there, but it looks like our right of way is a few feet narrower.
The width does vary from 50 to 60 feet. On that end, we would have to do more survey, but it's possible that we wouldn't have to do many improvements. That street looks to be in better condition than the west side. That sidewalk, there is already sidewalk there on both sides.
On the south side of
Division
Cedar?
and
Well, no, I'm talking about, if you go back to this previous slide. So where Cedar comes to Lincoln,
oh, I'm
those
sorry.
last 2 lots, it looks like that bumps out so that right away is narrower down there. Is that going to be problematic for the project? I'm assuming probably not, but I just noticed it and wanted to point it out.
No, it wouldn't be. This is a Vista's property, and we're potentially going to be doing some stormwater improvements in that area. So we might need to get an easement if we needed to do something in that area.
Okay.
And
A potential easement.
Okay.
I believe sidewalks have already been put in to the edge of the Vista property there with the new Cedar Ridge development, including with the houses just east of there. So we're connecting sidewalks to those that have already been put in by recent developers.
Yeah, I know it's a question in terms of right of way width, and I mean, typically we'd get that 5 feet on the plating process or short plat or elsewhere.
It's not important. I'm sure Holly will manage it. I just noticed it, so I wanted to make sure there was no glitches or.
Councilwoman Rule. Holly, on that similar note, it seems like the pavement, I drive this street frequently, Along the library frontage, already has existing sidewalk and frontage. Is there any benefit to narrowing the scope of this from the library property west instead of redoing that last 600 feet or so?
So I think that would come when we start preliminary design and we survey and that we investigate what needs improvement and what doesn't. When you're standing at that asphalt, it does appear to be in much better condition than as you head west. But that would be considered. I think that there's a gap in the sidewalk on the north side. So we would come and we would put that sidewalk connectivity on the north, but if the asphalt was in good shape and that sidewalk on the south side was in good shape, we would stretch our dollars and keep that existing infrastructure.
Mr. Mayor, I might point out that I believe that sidewalk is on the curb. So there's no storage potential for
Yep.
snow, et cetera. And so I thought about that same piece of it. This looks like pretty good sidewalk. But I think if we're going to redesign that, and because it's the library, we run into that snow storage problem, et cetera.
Yep. Good points. And I just had one other question. On the north side, especially between Madison and Monroe, it's quite a drop off, that ditch as you go into those yards. Stormwater is it just going to be a 3-to-1 slope from the edge of the sidewalk down into those yards, or how do we address that, or is that part of the design?
It's gonna have to work itself out in design. There's some serious stormwater improvements that we're gonna have to tackle. There's stormwater coming, from Madison Avenue into this area, that those ditches are moving serious water. So it's very likely that we'll have to do some type of piping. It's nice to keep your stormwater above ground for treatment purposes, but once it's treated, get it in a pipe and move it out of the area. So a lot of the stormwater is gonna become underground, and maybe we can make those ditches much more shallow and safer.
While we're on this topic, just because that we're all here together, I just want to share some findings from a recent Johns Hopkins University study about the lane width issue. And I'm not going to read much here for you. It's literally just a couple bullet points. The key takeaways, and I'd be happy to share it with anybody who wants to see it, is that 9, 10, 11-foot lanes did not increase accident risk or frequency compared to 12-foot lanes. Wider lanes at faster speeds had significantly more crashes than narrower lanes, but slower speeds had less difference. Narrower lanes help the environment by allowing more users in less space, and less pavement is needed. Narrowing lanes offers great opportunities for adding a wider bike lane or wider sidewalks to existing streets without compromising safety. So just some points to think about as we go into the design phase here. The study strongly recommends a default width of no more than 10 feet for streets intended for speeds under 35 miles per hour. Priority should be placed on making this change on urban streets in the 20 to 35 mile per hour range without significant bus or truck traffic. Yeah.
So with that, council members, just feeling the room here, I think Holly's heard us pretty clear, and I fully support moving towards a design with narrower lanes. If you feel it appropriate, you could make a motion to, if you're going to approve this, direct the lanes to be designed to no more than 10 feet.
I did notice Brandon moved to the front of the room.
Oh, thanks, Brandon.
I just wanted to add about the sections. Holly mentioned that those typical sections come from the urban area transportation plan. That's the 2007 version.
Yeah.
They never belonged there in the first place. They shouldn't be in an urban area transportation plan, including Kootenai and Ponderay. I don't know how they ended up in there. My understanding was that they're more of like recommendations, but absent any other standard details, we've been having to use them as our design guidance. So I just wanted to point out that if we adopt a new urban area transportation plan, my goal was to develop our own standard typical sections, updated them,
Yep.
So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. That'll be another process that'll be happening, but.
Thanks. I guess I defer to staff. Do you feel like it's pretty clear you can move forward with a 10-foot lane width, adding any extra to the planting strip? Or would you like that included in a motion if the council so inclined?
I have the so I'm super supportive of narrower lanes, absolutely. my only tiny hesitation is I know that there are trucks that use this corridor, Avista, and think 10 foot is appropriate for trucks. I would just want to make sure, double, triple check that that was okay. But I think for the purposes of adopting a concept, 10-foot lanes seems adequate.
Is there any validity to, or do we know if Avista has made formal intent to move their operations out of Sandpoint?
Not that I'm aware of. I've heard that those discussions have been going on for 20 years.
Mr. Mayor, I have questions.
Councilwoman Duquette?
I may, I'll be very calm. I have questions about, I go down there a lot also. The road definitely needs to be repaired. So the sidewalks that go down on the south side, when they stop, there's a lot of property of houses, their yards, and there's a swath of trees. And I'm just curious, how do you approach that? Because if you continue those sidewalks where they are, it's going to take quite a bit of yards out of people's property.
Yeah, Councilwoman Duquette, there's, so the right of way, and stop me if you understand this or know this already, but often the right of way, when we have
Okay,
subdivisions, it's
right.
like 60
Okay.
or 50 feet.
Okay,
And
60.
if we don't have a street that's that width, people will plant, I myself have put vegetable gardens in the right of way, knowing that it's not my property, it's the city's. right of way.
Okay, I forgot about the right of way.
Better
And
shovel it.
what's that? Oh, and then, so people, they just have to deal.
So
Mr. Mayor, well, oh, sorry, Holly. I just, from my historical context, we also have written language in our code that if there are trees, we can shift our sidewalk to accommodate trees
Right.
around that type of stuff. So that we, that's written into our code or our policy or whatnot. So that may alleviate some of your concerns there also.
I have seen you do that, and I like that. There's that one property, and before their house, there's just a little forest. And it's a beautiful little forest, and you're not going to be able to go around all those trees. But I get the right of way, forgot about that. And then that one big, huge tree down a little bit farther. I don't know if you can go around that or not.
So we're getting a survey as soon as this professional service agreement is approved. HMH Engineering, they have surveyors. They're going to be out there in the next couple weeks, getting topo survey and picking up those trees. So soon we'll have an inventory and we'll know which trees are in the right of way, which trees are within our sidewalk alignment, what the size is, and then we'll engage our arborist who can help us understand the condition of those trees and if they're in good shape. And then they can also help us determine the best route. Can we deviate the sidewalk around the tree, and talk to the homeowner and see what options they want us to explore? So that's kind of our first step, is to get that inventory with the survey.
Right. Okay. And then you're going to put a planting strip back in that. Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schreiber?
Thank you.
Thanks for the conversation that we had one-on-one about this. I enjoyed that, and I think we're on the same page, and I'm on the same page with all the rest of the discussion that's happened. In fact, if we get any closer, I've got a bingo going on my notes here. But the one thing that hasn't been brought up that I wanted to bring up is that the cross-section has sidewalks on both sides. And in terms of budget, we have a very, limited resource that we can put towards sidewalks. And so if you told me we have enough money for 2/3 of a mile of sidewalk, but we're going to use it in 1/3 of a mile of street, I would say, why couldn't we just put sidewalk on one side and use that other 1/3 of a mile of sidewalk somewhere else in town that has no sidewalks? And in fact, it's even more than that, because that south side of the street actually has several sections of sidewalk that could be connected. So you're not even building a whole 1/3 of a mile. But the north side, not only does it have far less sidewalk that's existing, but it doesn't connect to any sidewalk. In fact, all of this street, Cedar all the way to Fifth, doesn't have any sidewalks on the north side. So it's not really connecting to anything. And so that would be my ask for this design project is, can we deviate from the complete streets ordinance to use that sidewalk funding somewhere else in town that doesn't have any sidewalks, instead of creating twice the sidewalk we need in an area that maybe doesn't even need it?
I'll let Holly answer in a second, but I'll share just some thoughts on that, Councilman Schreiber. One, there's an ADA aspect of this when we're making improvements, so we do need to make sure that there's accessibility. Sometimes that might mean putting a curb ramp and a crossing, so disabled folks can get across to the sidewalk portion. And then I would just, overarching say, anytime you are forcing, I love the spirit and the thought of cost savings and making our dollars go more. But anytime you're requiring the multimodal public to cross a street, you're adding inconvenience and opportunity for conflict with traffic and other conflicts. So I just throw that out. Holly, did you have anything to add?
I would just add that I think the preliminary design is a good time to look at those if we need to be looking at costs. We'll get a preliminary design and a cost estimate. This is not an inexpensive project. This is really ambitious. So we're likely going to have to be looking back at this project and perhaps scaling down, or maybe there's an opportunity we can get it all funded. But my recommendation, I guess, would be to move forward with this concept on sidewalk on both sides of the streets and explore other options if we have to and if we don't have the funding.
I guess I would clarify by saying it doesn't really matter if we have the funding or not, because we could use it somewhere else. And we covered those exact same problems on Pine Street here. There's only a sidewalk on one side. So obviously we can get around that issue. And I'd like to see 2/3 of a mile of sidewalk rather than 1/3 of a mile of street that has sidewalks on both sides.
Just one final thought, ASHTO it's a recommendation from ASHTO, but when you have a road classification collector and arterial, ASHTO does recommend sidewalk or some pedestrian considerations on both sides of the streets. Just a recommendation from ASHTO.
Any other council? I'm sorry, have we, it's been a long day. Where are we at? Have we
I've got a
done-
final slide, actually.
Okay.
We're not even done.
The amount of the contract with HMH Engineering, we did a solicitation. We received 4 statements of qualifications. HMH, we are negotiating a contract with them in the amount of $158,000. This is within our budget. We are using general fund and resort city tax for the street design. The water fund is funding the water main design portion. And just a post-schedule award, if council was to approve this contract tonight, we would immediately notify neighbors so they would know this is happening. Survey and geotech would start in the next couple weeks. We would hold a public workshop, and I'm saying workshop because it would be a two-way conversation in May. And this would come back, preliminary design back to council in June, just a rough schedule. And then we'd hold an open house with what the final design looked like late summer and have this design wrapped up and brought to council back early fall.
Thank you, Holly.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go for it,
I
Councilwoman.
thought maybe you were going to show another slide. Did you put, is there a bike path, a bike lane on that new road?
There's not. We
Okay.
have a right-of-way challenge where between 50 and 60 feet, the right-of-way varies. And so what's in best alignment with our code is this Stero concept.
Okay.
6-foot sidewalks though,
Yeah, well, I'm not supposed to ride on the sidewalk.
only in the downtown core.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, council members. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
Yeah, no.
Got a presentation?
Give you 6 minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution authorizing grant. I'm so sorry. It has been a long day.
It's on there somewhere.
Going back here, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for Cedar Street Reconstruction Project Professional Service Agreement with HMH Engineering.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Rule, second by Councilman Welker.
Feel good about myself.
This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The final item on the agenda this evening is an executive session. I will entertain a motion to convene an executive session pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74-206-1F to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss legal ramifications and legal options for pending litigation or controversy not yet being litigated, but immediately likely to be litigated, and 74-206-1J to consider labor contract matters authorized under Idaho Codes Section 74-206-A1, A, B, and A and B. This will be a roll call vote.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dick, second by Rule. Roll call vote.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette.
Thank you. And I think, unless you got to run, I think staff can all remain in the room for this one.
Mr. Mayor, are you adjourning or convening to executive session at this time?
Yes.
Okay, then the Zoom meeting will now end.